Greetings and salutations. Welcome to my new agent orientation masterclass series. The purpose of this content is very simple. You're here because you're about to be licensed as an insurance agent, or maybe you just got licensed and are totally confused as to what happens next after you get licensed, or maybe just confused about the industry in general. And if that's the case, then you are at the perfect video. What I'm going to be talking about in this very extensive, very detailed new agent orientation masterclass is everything that you need to know about the industry, about how agencies work, how compensation works, etc., so that you can have more transparency, more understanding, and most importantly, make good decisions about your insurance career. Because as you're going to discover as we go through today's training, there's a lot of mistakes to make, and we want to aggressively avoid those mistakes as quickly and as painlessly as possible. With that said, we're going to jump into our new agent orientation slideshow and begin the process of learning more about how the business works. So, again, the course exists because it's not just enough to pass your exam. Congratulations, of course, you got your license. That's a very good thing for sure. But it's not all that you need, because what your licensing exam teaches you are just the things that are required to be a licensed life insurance agent or health insurance agent or any kind of insurance agent that you are. But the truth is that to build a career, you need to develop a whole new set of knowledge base, understanding, and skills. For example, you need to learn how agencies are structured, how agents get paid. You need to know how you're going to make money, how to evaluate opportunities. Boy, is this important. How sales works, and then how to take this into a lucrative, financially opportunistic, long term career. And if you don't have this information, you're in a very bad spot. But understanding this business, and I would say and argue, your ability to digest what you're about to see is going to put you so much further head above shoulders than other recently licensed agents. Are going to put you in a totally different realm than where you would be previously. So why should you listen to this dude with the Hawaiian shirt in the first place? Maybe this has occurred to you if you haven't met me before. My name is David Duford. And what I have done and what I bring to the table is a very unique perspective to this business. And this isn't me boasting, it's just the truth. I've been in the business as a licensed agent since 2011. At the filming of this, that's 15 plus years. And throughout most of that time, I've done a combination of high production and personal sales and what's called the final expense business, but also a high level of production in agency building. So not only do I have firsthand experience doing what you are intending to do as an agent, I also have firsthand experience for almost a decade helping others who join my company do the same. And what you're going to get from me today is really the culmination of everything I've learned, not just through seeing others, but experiencing it firsthand, the ups and the downs of the business. And hopefully that comes out in my explanations. So I've begun, like I said, in 2011. I've personally sold more than 1,500 insurance policies. My active personal production was from about 2011 to 2017 full time, and then I went part time for a couple more years before fully investing into the agency, which is Dig Agency. That's my company. I have one of the largest insurance sales content based YouTube channels, and have since for literally a decade. We've had more than 6,000 agents work with my agency and many more growing every single month. Over 30,000 policies sold in that time period, more than 7 million views on YouTube. And I have 4 best-selling books for insurance agents who still like to read. Some of you out there like to read. Go to Amazon to check them out, put my name in, you'll find them. And so all of this is to share with you, to not necessarily join my agency, although I do recruit nationally, but it is here to help you make better decisions about your insurance career wherever you go, because so many people fail this business. It's crazy. So let me give you a little tease, a little taste of what you're going to learn, because this is going to be incredibly impactful. And by the way, as we go through today's content, there should be timestamps below, so you can just bounce around. You don't have to watch this in sequence, although I suggest that you do. You can just pick and choose what is of interest to you. and then watch that particular section. But if you're brand new to the business, it's best just to sit down with this and just work your way through it, because there's so much information that you need to know in order to give yourself a chance of success. So first, we're going to start with the basics, understanding the insurance sales industry, the stuff they don't teach you in the licensing exam, understanding the vocabulary, the designation codes, all the stuff that's particular to the business model, how to sell, what you can sell. All of this is really important in formulating your next steps and where you're going to go in the business, which is module 2, choosing the right insurance agency to join. Most people make this mistake immediately, and it causes a lot of people to fail prematurely. So choosing your right agency is a critically important decision. We'll teach you what to ask, what to look for, and what to avoid. We're also going to talk about the reality of the insurance business, what comes with this profession that's solely different from others. Because sometimes what you've been sold on to come into selling insurance is what I like to call rainbows and sunshine. Well, it is that, but more, and a lot more of the frustration points that you may not be aware of. And we're going to talk about it soberly so you get both sides of the coin and see what the business is really like. We're also going to talk about how to build your insurance career, not just getting started, but how do you level up? How do you make more money? How do you turn your income from an active-based income to a passive-based income? Very important training as well. We'll also do money management as well. We're going to teach you how to manage your money, at least to think like a straight commission agent does. That's also extremely important because it's a lot different than being an hourly employee. We're going to help you understand how compensation works a little bit more clearly, what things to be aware of when you're looking at a compensation offer, and how to give yourself the best optionality and the best earning capability. We'll also, again, briefly discuss the insurance sales process, because you're getting into a sales job. You need to be able to persuade people to buy. Luckily, it's simpler than I may even make it out to be right now. But you need a process, you need a system. I'm going to show you the fundamentals of what you're going to see pretty much everywhere with any agency that actually has street cred selling insurance. And then we'll wrap it up, inform you of your next steps, what I would suggest as somebody who's been in the business for a long time, what to look for, what to avoid, et cetera. So I'm super excited about this. Again, every module builds upon itself, but you can piecemeal it to the degree that you want to. And a couple of other clarifiers here. What this course is practical. If you're here because you care about your career and you understand that knowledge is power, this is for you. Same thing if you're beginner friendly. It's a beginner. If you're brand new, you got to watch this. It's so important. It's industry focused. All I care about is the insurance sales business. That's what I live and breathe for, and you're going to find that out very quickly, and hopefully it will help you out. And it is absolutely applicable to almost all new insurance agents, no matter what you're selling. You'll hear me talk a lot about life insurance, some Medicare, some health insurance. You may not know exactly the specifics of those. Maybe you're selling something else. Pay no attention to that. That's just my knowledge base in the insurance business. But most of what we talk about is fundamental training that applies to every single insurance agent, no matter what it is you're selling. Now, let me tell you what this course isn't. This isn't licensing preparation. You can go watch my other content. I've got a ton of content out there that will prepare you and help you practice and in preparation for the life and the health insurance exam. This content isn't it. This is what you do after your license. You can watch this if you're going through the licensing process and you haven't passed yet, for sure. Just understand that's not what you're going to get here. This is also not product training. So we're not going to talk a lot about the different carriers that are out there, how they work, how underwriting works. What I'm more concerned about with is getting you from being licensed to being a productive agent. So product training is something that your agency provides once you join the agency and know where your next steps are in your career. Same thing, it's not carrier training, and it definitely is not a high pressure recruiting presentation. I do not care after watching this whether or not you join big agency. Of course, I would encourage you to, because I think what we do is amazing. But I put this out truthfully because I just love helping people. It's just a part of my psyche, is to give without expectation. And I hope you don't feel that we're trying to pitch you. Now, we'll do some shameless plugs because I put this content together for no cost to you, of course. And I want you to know what we have to offer. If you find that it's a good fit for you, if it's not, that's fine too. So bottom line, the objective is simple. Let's help you become more knowledgeable as an insurance professional that's capable of making smart career decisions, which is it's so important. Some of the mistakes that cause most new agents to struggle, again, this may be news to you, and this is what really is informing me and even creating this content, is that 90% of all new agents fail typically within their first 12 months. You'll see others like Cody Askins out there talk about the 8% nation. Well, he's referencing that somewhere in the 92% range fail. I don't know what the exact number is, but it is the vast majority of them that fail. Okay. And it's not necessarily that they fail because they lack ability as much as it is that they struggle because they make avoidable mistakes. They make mistakes they don't have to go through, like joining the wrong agency. They don't understand compensation. They buy leads before they're ready, or they just run out of money. Like, these are common reasons that people prematurely quit that could actually make it, or expecting success too quickly because the learning curve is longer than they anticipated, largely because they've been lied to by the multi-level marketing agencies that are out there. We'll talk more about that very shortly. And they just quit before they gain momentum. And again, what we'll do throughout this course is discuss how to avoid each of these common pitfalls so that you can maximize your chances of success. So here's the shameless plug. First of all, I do own Dig Agency. And although we're here to help you be an insurance agent, a successful one, invariably a lot of you watching are going to ask, well, what does David do? What's his operation like? So I want to get this out of the way so that you know who we are, how we operate, and what you can do if you'd like to learn more. So Dig Agency is my company. I'm a whole owner. I'm the only owner. And it's a national insurance agency focused on helping newly licensed agents build their successful careers. So this is a place you could possibly call home. And what makes us different than other agencies is the following. First of all, we recruit part and full-time agents. There's a lot of companies that will not touch part-time agents with the 10-foot pole. We happily and gladly take both part-timers and full-timers. So if you're doing this as a side hustle or in addition to another job, we can accommodate. There's times to work on nights, weekends, even early mornings, depending on the time zone you're in. So highly encourage you, if you're looking for part-time or full-time work, give Dig Agency consideration. We do offer free leads as well. So one of the biggest issues for many new agents is buying leads, and you usually have to buy thousands upon thousands of dollars every month. We have a free lead program where you don't have to do that at all. And all you have to do is sit and sell. It's a nice convenience without the financial risk commonly associated with many agents getting into the business. There's ongoing training, mentorship, and coaching from real life agents just like you that will personally coach and mentor you because that's their job in addition to selling. There's also opportunities to recruit if you want to, but we recruit nationally. And our primary audience is new agents just like you, and even experienced agents too. So you can sell remotely. Most people choose to sell from home, from the comfort of their home, but we do have the opportunity too. If you would like to sell in person in your local community, we have strategies that can accommodate along with free leads. And bottom line, we have high commission opportunities and fast pay. So you have to sit around waiting to get paid. Okay. So if you feel like, hey, this might be a good fit, then what you can do is just go to davidduford.com. You can click the link below in the description box, or just go to davidduford.com, watch the video to follow the next steps. And if it doesn't work, no problem. Again, the hope is that this course genuinely helps you. And then we have one other option or program here before we get started. This is our Wealthy Insurance Agent Group. This is a school group, and it's designed for people who don't necessarily want to join Dig Agency, but want a lot more product training, a lot more sales training. So you're going to get things like training on building an agency, sales improvement, marketing, product training, leadership training, and then discussions with experienced professionals, even doing ride-alongs with them over the shoulder, seeing how they sell successfully. So you can go to that link down there at the bottom. It's actually insurance-sales-success, school.com. There's a link in the description box below. It may be school.com/wealthy-insurance-agent. May have gotten that mixed up, but just look in the description box below and then you'll find it down there. So with that said, that's everything. So let's jump right in to our very first module. In today's fundamental training, we're going to discuss the basics of the insurance business and understanding how it's structured, what products you can sell, and some basic terminology. This is a perfect training if you're newly licensed or about to be licensed, because if you don't understand how things work, then you're likely to make missteps, financially expensive ones if that, and potentially fail prematurely like 90% of the agents out there. So we're going to jump right in and go over how important this is and how vital it is to understand this information. Bottom line, this module is going to give you the roadmap to understanding the insurance business before making costly decisions. Again, one of the things you have to realize is you're getting into this as a business. You may even be thinking, well, this is a job I'm doing. But if you have a business mentality, you have to understand there's opportunity costs. There's the upside potential and there's downside potential. And commonly getting into this business, the people who recruit you in, you're probably here because somebody suggested you consider the business, probably oversold you how amazing it was without really talking about the downside. What I tend to do in this training is talk equally about the upside and the downside, if not more so the downside, because I'd rather have an agent who joins my agency come in with full uh, uh, perspective on what could happen if they don't follow the system that we outline. Okay. So the bottom line, this module is your industry orientation, and it's a foundation that every smart agent builds on first. And again, most agents come into this, they learn as they go. Nothing wrong with that. But if you are ignorant because you don't know how things are oriented, it can cost you. And that is shown by the number of people that fail out of this business every single year. So learning objectives with this module include, we're going to help you understand the industry structure, things like carriers, agencies, IMOs, FMOs, underwriters, brokers, how this all works and meets together is really important. You're going to learn the difference between being a captive and an independent agent. Very important that you understand the distinction because there's pros and cons of both. You're going to understand the difference between being a W-2 employee versus a 1099 independent contractor. Extremely different experience, definitely different implications from even taxation. I'm going to give you a good, thorough overview about the differences and the expectations. We're also going to give you an overview of the major product lines and sales channels. So maybe you're wondering what products to sell or how to sell them. We're going to explain in detail both, at least to give you some idea of what next move you may make based off of which product sounds encouraging to you. And we're going to, again, help you learn the core terminology that really defines the insurance sales business. So let's start off with the fun stuff. What can you actually do as a newly licensed insurance agent? What kind of careers are available? So first of all, in no particular order here, of course, you can sell life insurance. So life insurance is insurance money in the hands of a beneficiary after somebody insured kicks the bucket. They're dead, right? And so life insurance provides a critical need to family in a time of financial distress. If somebody dies early or prematurely, it can replace what future income would have been earned and keep a family secure. Now, inside of the life insurance umbrella, this might be mentioned a little bit later, there's what we call subproducts of life insurance. So most agents just don't sell life insurance. They'll sell some niche or sub niche of life insurance, like, for example, final expense. That's what I sell. That's what we recruit my companies or my company recruits to. So we sell life insurance to seniors on the middle to lower income range that want to protect against the rising costs of funerals and cremation to get peace of mind to relieve that from their loved ones. Okay. So likewise, there are other niches in life insurance. For example, you can sell mortgage protection. That's very popular. You can also sell index universal life, extremely popular at the filming of this video. And then there's other niches like selling to business owners or possibly selling group life to companies or group life to smaller or larger companies. So the point is, if you like the idea of life insurance, it's a great product. One of the reasons I really like it is it pays a high first year commission. All of those products pay really well. And most people get into this business because they need to make money yesterday, and life insurance can provide a good income to do that. Additionally, there's what's called health insurance. Now, you may just be thinking of health insurance like your policy from work or ACA, Obamacare, Trump Care, whatever you want to call it. And you can actually sell these products. But you also, I would throw into the mix there Medicare as well. That's a healthcare product, but again, designed for people retired on Social Security or disabled. One of the benefits about selling health insurance is that it's pretty simple to understand. It's simple to sell because most people need health insurance, at least agree that they do. It's just a matter of paying for it, making sure it fits their budget. And then as the agent, the benefit to you is that you can get renewal income. So with Medicare and ACA, Obamacare, Trump Care, you can get residual income for the life of the policy, right? So if you do, for example, Medicare long enough, you have 1,000 clients, you're going to make 27, 28 bucks a month. Extrapolate that out, that's 28 grand a month if you have 1,000 clients. And you can get 1,000 clients in a couple of years if you really work hard at it. And that's residual based income. Of course, a little more complicated than that, but it's income that the old people used to call mailbox money. It comes in whether you work hard that month or not, as long as you retain the customer. So a lot of people love the health insurance business because of that residual based income. Again, we mentioned final expense, my personal choice for brand new agents because of the higher first year commissions, accessibility and ease of getting prospects to talk to. It's a one call close, meaning you just do one sales call, predominantly educational. You end the call, you can do it remotely from home. Lots of stuff to like about it. Medicare, same thing too, along the same lines like we mentioned. Annuities, this is one that is very popular these days as baby boomers and Gen Xers are hitting retirement. They become concerned about not outliving their money. They don't want to have no money but life. They would rather die with money, or the last check hitting the lid as it closes, bouncing as it closes, as they say. So annuities allows you to protect your retirement, to get a guaranteed stream of income, and to have peace of mind according to distribution of your savings. Okay, so this is usually something that's sold by people who have been in the business for a couple of years. For example, Jess Fox, who's been on my channel before, started on final expense, moved to annuities with us, and now runs her own annuity division, sells annuities herself. They make a huge income. You could sell one annuity and make 5 figures, okay, in just one sale. So it's different from life insurance in that the commission's much higher. There's very rarely renewals on it, but it's a fun product to sell. Takes a little bit longer to sell than other standard issue life insurance products, but it's a great product. Also, property and casualty, if you're wanting to sell car insurance, home insurance, etc., this is what would fit under this. The benefit to selling these products like health insurance, it's a residual based product. Everybody needs it. In many cases, it's required. So you're entering a business that it's not a matter of should I buy it or not, like life insurance. They have to buy it. And so everybody is a prospect that is an adult. Okay. Also, supplemental coverage. So you can sell things like critical illness, dental, vision, and hearing, accidental coverage that supplements other types of coverage. This tends to be sold alongside health insurance products. That's been my experience. Some people sell it independently, but again, what I've seen more often than not, it's sold as an add-on or an upsell to, say, a Medicare health insurance product. And then last but not least is commercial lines. So this is commercial liability coverage sold specifically to businesses. It can be a very lucrative business model and a very successful one as well. So in addition to the products that are sold, there's different ways you can sell insurance too, of course. You can sell in the home. This is the classic traditional approach. You preset an appointment or maybe even door knock randomly at the person's home or business, and then you sit down to do a presentation, either fact finding what they have, then making an offer on a specific type of product, or maybe you sell one singular product and then you pitch that to them. That's what I did selling final expense. Back in the day, it was exclusively face-to-face. Now it's a blend of both, mostly remote, actually. But we would knock on a door or go on an appointment to the client's home, sit down 20 minutes later, we're either signing them up, making a sale, or we get out of there because the sale is not going to happen. So in-home, the benefits of in-home sales is that you typically close a higher amount. You sell more policies as a percentage of the people you see because there's more inherent trust there. You see them eye to eye. It's not skeptical like, is this some scammer from far away in another country trying to rip me off? So you tend to sell more because of it. But downside of in-home visits is who knows what you're getting into. Some places are pretty sketchy, and I've seen some pretty gross, nasty stuff. So, but with that said, in-home works wonderfully well. And I would make an argument even from the standpoint with AI and voice AI, it's a strategy that won't die off because of AI coming in. So it may have longer term viability as AI becomes more standardized across sales environments. Telesales or remote-based sales where you do the presentation but remotely from home. This is how we do it at the Dig Agency. Most agents choose this way. And in fact, across the industry, most agents sell remotely. COVID forced everybody out of the field in many states, and many people got into the business wanting to be remote. So the business made a huge transition in the life insurance space, at least, to being fully remote. There are others like Medicare and property and casualty that were already remote, but the life insurance business that I'm accustomed to caught up. So most people are selling remotely. It makes sense in a lot of reasons because you don't have to leave home, fight traffic, waste time, but it's harder to sell over the phone. You need a little more finesse and higher in strength, stronger tonality. You got to have a sense of warmth and immediate connection. And there's more objections typically as well, pushback from the prospect, but it can be a great strategy. You can also, maybe not you, but agents or companies can sell insurance directly to the consumer without you. So this is what companies like Colonial Penn, AARP do. They don't actually use agents. They just do direct to consumer mailers, commercials, and they go to the company website and sign up that way. Some of you may be getting involved with like a State Farm or Allstate, where there is a brick and mortar location, office based location. Some of you may be going into a call center environment. Okay. So these are all viable strategies too. They come with more of that corporate approach. And then usually it fills into either the in home or the telesales approach. Some places make you go meet in an office, but then you actually execute the presentations on an in person basis, or you just conduct them entirely over the phone. Work site and group insurance is where you go to the work site, you go to the employer, and then you do enrollments there to enroll for life insurance, health insurance. Maybe you're talking to the business owner to do key man insurance, stuff like that. And then referral based is the last strategy, which is something that can happen really within all of these. It's where you get people to come to you to talk about buying life insurance, not by paying for it, but the way those referrals can be sold is over the phone remotely or in person as well. So, one key takeaway here is your sales channel shapes your lifestyle. All right. So, what I mean by that is that I was a road warrior as an agent, and you have to be comfortable being on the road because in my experience, selling face to face final expense, I had, I could be around the corner from my house, I could be up to 2 hours away. There was an organization to it, so I wasn't back and forth like that all the time. But you have to be comfortable doing the road stuff, driving on the road, being away from home, being in people's houses. So you want to spend some time really deliberating which of these strategies really makes the most sense. In most cases, practically, it's going to come down to will you sell in people's homes or will you sell remotely over the phone in an office or at your home? And my general advice is to follow your gut and do the strategy that fits you the best. There are plenty of agents that do in-home sales and telesales successfully. But what they've realized is they play to their strengths. Okay. So you don't want to do one strategy because you think it's better or because it's more appealing. You want to think about yourself and be honest with yourself. Who are you? And how would you do if you had to be at home? And how would you do if you had to be in person? What would the differences be? In other words, I've heard agents saying, hey, I've sold on the phone or I'm used to phone sales. I'm comfortable with it. I love the phone. Probably should do telesales. I've heard others like myself. I've said things to myself like, hey, I love being in front of people. I love looking them eye to the eye. I just feel a better connection that way. So my strengths, I would say intuitively, are more on the face-to-face side. So I think being a brand new agent, play to those strengths. Doesn't mean you can switch. You can't switch later. You certainly can. But because this business is deceptively difficult, as we'll discover, you want to always play to your strong points first and foremost. Now let's do some terminology and understanding to the structural process of how insurance is organized. You may be wondering, like, do I have to join an agency in order to sell insurance? How do I get started? Can I just join directly to the company? So there's questions like this that hopefully we'll resolve as we go through. So first of all, just some definitions. Whenever you hear carrier, that's the insurance company. They're the ones that are going to create the products, service the products, to some extent your clients as well. You will have relationships with carriers throughout your entire career. The agency typically is where you will work. In most cases, agents work with an agency that has a direct affiliation with a number of agencies. That would be called a broker, an independent agency, or one particular carrier that would be called a captive carrier. We'll talk about that in a moment. So what you really need to do is think less about, oh, I want to join this company or that company. I want to think about finding a good agency that represents all of my values and what I need as an individual producer. More on that in the next module. You, of course, are the agent. You sell insurance. You will eventually, if you haven't already, see terminology like IMO, FMO. IMO means independent marketing organization. FMO means field marketing organization. All this is a large agency. Okay. So what they do is they typically recruit either agents or agencies and then provide them products. So it's almost like a derivative or a step above an agency. And typically what you find above IMO and FMOs is the carrier. Sometimes you'll find what's called a national marketing organization and then the carrier. So there's this hierarchy as the thing goes up. Practically, the IMO FMO doesn't necessarily matter. It's who you're associated with, what their standards are, and so on. Of course, the underwriter is the person who ultimately decides if your client is approved for coverage or not. We call them the business prevention team because you can have somebody who wants to buy, but if underwriting finds out they're not a good fit, then your deal is capiche. And then a broker is somebody who represents a multitude of carriers and typically is thought of as representing the client first and then shopping multiple options on their behalf. Now let's talk about captive versus independent. This is another thing very important, very vital to understand the difference. One is not better than the other, but it's important to understand the distinctions so you know where the limitations are for each. So typically a captive agent, think about the word captive. It means captivity. Means slave. You may even go so far as to say that. It means that you're kind of stuck in a position. All right. So unfortunately, a lot of negative words, but captive arrangements can be good. So captives typically represent one carrier. So think about a State Farm agent or an Allstate agent. These agents only sell State Farm exclusively or Allstate agents selling Allstate exclusively. So the benefit to that is there's less to know from different companies and you now have one product solution. So it's a simpler, arguable process than knowing a bunch that you know, just overwhelm you. So captive agents typically use company systems and branding. You don't see them creating their own angle about, you know, who they are and what makes them different. It's all pushing the product and the brand itself. You'll often be paid salary plus benefits in these positions. They can be really good if that's important to you. Although I would argue that top end compensation is lower because of these perks. There's less product flexibility. So you're going to have one life insurance product. You're going to have one property and casualty product, etc. Whereas if you're an independent agent, you'll have access to multitudes, which allows you to shop around. So this can be a good choice to start with. If you are brand new to the business, you need sales training, you need structure, you need all of that stuff. Like you're just totally brand new. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it. You know, every agency is different. And again, we'll give you some advice shortly or in the next module about what to look for and what to ask about, especially training. But there are times when you will get a better deal with the fundamentals of learning the business through a captive agency. Now, on the flip side, an independent agent is really the opposite of captive, where you are stuck in one carrier position. As an independent agent, you can do what you want. So, for example, you can represent multiple carriers. You can build your own brand and business. Typically, you're what's called a 1099 independent contractor, where you make straight commission. The benefits to this gives you maximum product flexibility. So I can have 5 different life insurance companies. So, and each has different underwriting requirements. So I can custom tailor the better option to my client better with more options than just one. But the downside is you're kind of on your own a bit. You have to motivate yourself to go to work. You have to get up there and make things happen. Sure, in many independent agencies like mine, there's mentors, coaches, etc. But you got to climb that mountain. We're the Sherpas. We'll show you the way up. You got to do the work. Okay, so let's now talk about the differences between being an employee and an independent contractor as an insurance sales agent. The distinction comes down really to risk and reward. With the employee side of the equation, there being less risk in your financial negative side. And I would also say on the upside, there's a less potential as well. Whereas the independent contractor side is wide open as far as the potential goes for earning an income, even low 6 to mid 6-figure incomes, others at 7 figures plus. But along with that comes the potential for tremendous downside financial risk, right? The bigger the risk or the bigger the reward typically means there's higher level of risk associated with it. And I think that's a fair assessment of the differences here between both. So it's not one that's better than an other, but generally speaking, what I have seen being the case is that If you are newer to sales and you need structure and don't mind a corporate environment, the W 2 approach is probably what you're going to find as being the better solution. Whereas if you're entrepreneurial and maybe you have some sales experience already, then the 1099 contractor position is probably the best route forward. So it really just comes down to what your personal preferences are. I've seen both succeed, but I will tell you this, typically if you start the W2 route and you produce X amount of production, if you have the same equivalent to an independent producer, you're going to make way less than what they would do. So it tends to be that the upside is just severely hamstrung relative to your independent agent buddies out there. Okay. All right, continuing on, insurance terminology every agent should know. Really quick review here. We'll just hit the stuff that we haven't talked about, like appointment. That just refers to you being able to sell the product because you're officially now an agent of the carrier through the agency. Um, just going through here, override, you'll hear this occasionally. This is the commission made above you as an agent to the manager or the agency that you're associated with, and it's not taken out of your commission. It's a separate payment to from the company to the typically manager or agency owner. And this is tends to be a passivity type of income, meaning it comes in without the person working for it having to actually work because you worked for the override, which was sent to the agency. And the goal is hopefully the agency put together a system and supported you to earn that override. Very important that you make sure that your agencies earn their overrides. As we get into picking an agency, it's important that they uphold their end of the deal. In many cases, they don't. They abuse the agent and don't provide commensurate value. So make sure you understand what an override is and that it has to be earned. A renewal is the income that comes in after the first year, technically associated with the contracts of insurance. Now, ultimately, a renewal is just income that you don't have to work for in many cases. Now, some cases you do. If you have Medicare, you got to help them review their policies annually. So there is an element of working for it. But renewal income generally means passive income that you don't make upfront. And some products are more heavily renewal oriented, like your Medicare and ACA and health products, property and casualty too. And those can be really nice after multi years of building that income stream where you make money without necessarily having to work as hard as you originally did to get the policy. Okay. And a chargeback is what happens when somebody cancels or dies, and a portion of that commission goes back. We're going to talk at length about this. It's important to understand a chargeback because most of these companies you're looking at, or maybe those who have brought you in, if you're recruited into the business, they don't talk about this stuff openly. You kind of find out after it already happens, which is never a good time to understand. We'll talk about what chargebacks are, how it impacts you, and how to reduce them. Sales terminology, a lead, prospect, interchangeable in my definitions. It's just somebody who expresses interest in a product. Note that a lead is not, and a prospect is not a sale. Okay. Sales come from leads and prospects, but that is ultimately you as the agent's ability to persuade that lead or prospect to buying from you today. Okay. So leads and prospects will not always be sales. Some will be sales all the time. Others, and in most cases, you have to work and connect and convince. That's your job. That's why you get paid the big bucks. Okay. Closing is just a term for making the sale. Some closing takes longer than others. The products I like to sell, like final expense, life insurance, typically are one call close. They're done on the first presentation. That means faster sales, which means faster pay. And pipeline just refers to the collection of prospects as they move through the process of underwriting, the prospecting process itself, presentation, close, and then approval and anything else. Okay. So wrapping this up, guys, you need a map to be successful in this business. And I hope so far you can see that we're working very hard over here to provide you this map. Knowledge is power. And the first thing you have to understand is that this business is deceptively difficult. I think I mentioned that earlier. You do not want to be in a position where you unnecessarily fail out before you have leverage and momentum. And this training is designed to do just that, is to prepare you with an understanding, the base understandings of how things work, so that you can make advances in your career quickly, efficiently, and with low risk. So you're already ahead of most, and it's important to continue this training, especially in the module 2, which I'm going to give you instructions on how to find the best agency for yourself and your goals. This is pivotal training because this is exactly where most agents fail. So let's jump right into it. In today's new agent orientation masterclass training, you're going to get perhaps the most important training as a new agent you're ever going to get, and that's helping you discern how to choose the right agency. You see, not all agencies are the same. Some are better fits for certain people than others. And the biggest mistake that agents cause and do that end up making them fail the business is picking the wrong agency that doesn't match their goals. So I'm going to work really hard here in today's training for you to help you avoid this so that you can just ultimately survive this business and thrive. That's my goal. So some things you're going to learn here today is why agency choice matters more than how much you get paid. It really does in the beginning, especially as a new agent. You're going to learn what a great agency provides that's positive and what a bad agent provides that's negative. So you know what to look for. You're going to learn the 5 pillars of a strong agency, why compensation isn't everything. Mentorship is so important, especially in the beginning. Questions you should ask before you sign any contracts an agency pushes in front of you. How to understand lead programs, red flags and green flags to watch out for when it comes to agencies. The differences between MLMs, which are very common in this business, and their mindsets versus traditional sales organizations, and then contract items you need to understand before you go any further in this process. So starting off, understand again, this is everything. This is the biggest mistake people make is choosing the wrong agency because they're just bamboozled by all the hype and how amazing it sounds. But what they don't realize is people who run agencies are usually the best salespeople. They're extremely good communicators and wonderful persuasion masters. And so they end up persuading a lot of people who shouldn't be to join before they know the truth about the business, which in turn really accelerates the level of failure that's so common in this business. So what we're going to teach you today is all of those things these agency owners are fail to tell you before they get you to sign the dotted line to join, so that you have the knowledge, and knowledge is power. An agency shapes everything, especially the first one, guys. I'll give you my story to start off with. I started with a company called Equita, which is a great company. They're actually still around. This is back in 2011, and I joined them because I knew I could get higher commission elsewhere, but they had a track record of success, and I felt like joining their company along with the track record of success. They also had lead programs, and the way they sold fit me. So it was a good cultural match across the board. And I do truly think that that experience first, and it wasn't a perfect experience by any stretch, but that first choice in agency was really good because it allowed me to develop the fundamentals, learn about the business, and get success, which ultimately culminated to further success in the many years that I did it. So don't overestimate how important it is to find good people in a good agency, because picking the wrong one, guess what? You get this feeling that it's all like this. It's just a scam. And then you end up leaving with the chip on your shoulder and thinking it's just a ripoff, which, we understand because a lot of agencies do this crap. And so you got to be careful. So let's talk about what a good agency actually does. So you should expect joining an agency to get the following, okay? You need training and skill development. An agency just shouldn't say, hey, here's a script, read it and get on the phone. Good luck. And then I'll come once a week and talk to me. It should be more frequent than that. There should be real opportunities for skill development, coaching, ride-alongs, ability to see the sales and process, listening to top producers, interacting with top producers. These are all critical elements to being successful in this business, okay? Especially as a new person. Obviously, you should get carrier access and appointments. I highly recommend that you work with an agency that allows you to have multiple appointments if possible, because having options to shop for your client makes sales happen faster too. It's not just salesmanship, it's optionality. That's important too. Certainly mentorship, coaching, lead systems. Guys, if you don't have a lead system at your agency, even if everything else is great, then you don't know how you're going to get paid, because you don't know where to get prospects from. You don't know how to get interested candidates to buy. So like with my agency, we provide the leads for free to our agents who get started. And that relieves a huge portion of concern that smart agents are aware of. How am I going to actually sell this stuff? It's not enough just to be an insurance agent. You have to have a system behind it. Does that make sense? So a big part of that is the lead system. Obviously, technology and CRM support is very important as well. Being able to manage the data, manage the leads, having access to tech that helps you connect and close more of your sales, and compliance support, community and culture, of course, are very important as well. As a side note on the community thing, um, I think it's important, but I think people overvalue the community side of things and the culture side of things. I look at it like you don't want to be in a bad community or a bad culture. You don't necessarily have to be in a culture that's like all over the place emotional, like a cult, right? Putting the cult in culture, right? We don't necessarily want to be a part of that because a large portion of a successful agent's career is, guess what? It's on the phone with clients selling them. It's in the field selling them. They're not going to be sitting around in an office space where a lot of this culture mantra may actually apply. What matters is, are you getting out there and making things happen? And so you're not going to be sitting in an office somewhere, the vast majority of you. So don't fall for the whole family culture thing. We're family and all this stuff. Like it really, the culture is go work. That's the kind of culture I speak, is like, hey, we're going to empower you so you can support your family and that you can get things done. But we expect this from you. Go work. We're not going to babysit you. Not going to do all this stuff. Like, so that's kind of my culture and what I bring to the table. But that may not be a good fit. So part of culture too is it matters to the extent that how detrimental it is to you. So like some places are very much recruit people and they believe in the whole recruiting MLM thing. If you don't believe that way, that's a definite culture mismatch. So those are the things you want to be more aware of than say have the best culture. It's stay away from those with the absolute worst culture that doesn't match with who you are and what it is that you want to accomplish. So what no agency, now this is important too. I'm glad we put this in here too. You need to understand there are some things that agencies can't do. Okay. Because a lot of people who fail will blame the agency, and there is validity to that. But there's some elements of a failed agent's complaints that aren't valid. And I'd rather be honest with you instead of tell you you're right. You're probably right some of the time, but then wrong some of the time. We need honesty. We need a refreshing approach to how we look at things and uncover the truth. That's what we all care about. We should. So first of all, there's no agency that can guarantee success. One of the things I tell agents all the time is like, look, I can't guarantee you're going to be successful here. I can guarantee that we're going to give you all the tools necessary to be successful, but you deploying them plus your time, that's what's going to give you success if it's at all possible. I've seen people who are very successful in life fail in my business. I've seen people who are burger flippers completely beat the pants off of tenured successful agents multiple times. So, but there's no way to guarantee this stuff. That's a lie. And even if you see an agent's do guarantees like this, it's just some BS. I would be very worrisome even that being suggested. No agency can do the work for you. Okay. So one of the things we deploy in our agency is we make agents study the material. We make agents go through the motions. We can't make them. But part of the process of determining if they're a good fit is giving them assignments and seeing if they're going to do it or not. Because ultimately, getting on the phone, calling, selling prospects is you doing the work. Doesn't mean we won't help you, but you got to take initiative in your life. That is an absolute requirement if you're going to be an insurance agent. You cannot think of this as everybody's sitting around waiting on you and they can't wait to serve you. No, you run your own business, have a business mentality, get stuff done, make things happen, do the work. There's no easy way. Remove rejection from the process. So, newsflash, rejection is not a bug, it's a feature. Rejection is not abnormal, it's the norm. The key is to be able to accept rejection as impersonal. They're rejecting your offer, not yourself. If you think you're going to get away from rejection and the pains that may be associated with it, don't. You will absolutely experience it on a daily basis. But the paradox is your most successful peers who make the most money in the agency you join, guess what? They get rejected more than you do. It's not that they're magically better. They are better, but they also have gone through the gauntlet of being of understanding rejection is just a normal par for the course. So ways to strategize around that. Every no is closer to a yes. Rejection is an opportunity for a sale. So again, these are things like mental constructs to help you deal with that. But a lot of people just get torn apart when somebody tells them they're not interested. You're gonna have to drop that, man. It's just the way it is. There's no other way to say it than that. Agencies aren't going to make you wealthy overnight. I commonly say that this is a get rich slow business. It takes time. Most people have to learn the product, learn the sales process, and that takes longer than anticipated. The cool thing is those who stick with it tend to just outperform everybody because of how long they've survived in the business. With that said, being in the insurance business first is about surviving the first year. The first year is the absolute hardest part. So you want to make sure that you think about it in that terms. And an agency is not going to replace, back to the kind of doing the work for you. You have to bring personal effort and discipline to the table. You don't have to have sales experience, but you have to be humble, you have to be coachable, and you have to put the work in. Simple as. Okay. So a great agency is going to create this opportunity. But under no circumstances will that remove the requirement to execute. That is still upon you entirely. So the 5 pillars of a great agency include leadership, again, guiding you and directing you. What is the general consensus / culture? Like in our organization, we're not heavy-handed with the constant babysitting like a lot of agencies do. We attract more of an independent-minded person that appreciates and needs mentorship, but we're very blunt, like with everything I've said so far about what the expectations are. And so that when somebody joins, they align with that. That's the hope. Training should be structured learning and ongoing skill development. You should have opportunities for group Q&A calls, reviewing sales presentations, meeting with your mentor. Obviously, support, not just from a sales standpoint, from tech support, onboarding support should all be a part of the package too. Obviously, you should have systems across the board in place. That should be normal part of the business for leads, proven sales processes, technology. And then, of course, like I said, the culture should be a very important part of the agency as well. So I mentioned earlier that commission is not everything. Okay. So when you join an agency, the first thing a lot of people think is, I just want to make the most money. And less appropriate information, when there's less appropriate information available, we all default to seeing who's going to pay us the most, right? Or where can I get the best wage or the best salary at? But the failure in that, the fault in our stars thinking that way, is that there's more to this business than just what you get paid. There's a lot more. And while you can have the highest commissions, you can have a lot of heartache that comes along with it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of times the high commission paths may have no training or mentorship. So you have this great big contract that allows a high revenue per sale, commission per sale, but you don't get provided the training and support necessary to exact the opportunity out of it, which then leads to low sales volume and lower actual income. So again, this is a paper tiger. It looks great on paper, but it ain't actually doing the job. Whereas a smarter agency path, maybe, yeah, you're having a lower commission rate, but you're getting all of that service orientation to develop yourself from a skill set basis, which then leads to higher sales and income. And so this is where it's very smart, I think, for the average agent getting started, maybe you watching out there, to consider the path that provides not the highest commission, but the best growth opportunity available. Because you may not be at that agency forever, but if you can be with them 6 months, 12 months, extract all this knowledge, apply it, grow from it, positionally speaking, you're better set for the rest of your career than if you arrived at it after a few failed opportunities previous to that, which is very common. Okay. So this is one of the most important lessons of the course. Don't overvalue commission rate. Very much value mentorship. Okay. So again, mentor multiplier makes a huge difference. Okay. The way to think about insurance is that it's very much like the Gilded Age, right? So we look back in the day, Benjamin Franklin's dad, I think, was a candle maker or maybe a printer. And the idea is your sons or whoever works for you would apprentice under a number of years to learn the craft and the business before going out on your own. Okay. So life insurance is kind of like that in the sense that you want to learn from a skilled practitioner who's done what you've already done, because they're going to provide you valuable insight that just watching a video, even mine, which are great, aren't going to necessarily provide you. Okay. So a great mentor should be always something you get and always what you want as a brand new agent. You're going to learn your skills faster. Mentors are going to help you identify what to focus your time and effort on, which compounds into more sales and higher income. And I believe a longer term career. Okay. So again, higher contract, or mentor from somebody who has street cred, but lower contract. I'd get the mentor all day long. You can figure out the commission stuff later once you have success. That's the key thing, okay? Now, here's some questions I think every new agent should absolutely ask every agency. So maybe you're looking at an agency to join. These are questions I don't mind answering if somebody asks me about this. And I think, as a side note, the fact it's not necessarily how what the answer is as much as how they approach answering these questions. What I have found over being in this business 15 years is people who ask questions, if they're answered in a snarky way or a disrespectful way, I don't care if the answer is otherwise fine. If they're treating you poorly because you're making important decisions about your career, why would I want to work with that person? Because what I have found too is that a bad relation, like, you should trust your instincts. If it starts off like this, it gets just amplifies, it gets worse. And I would rather have that information now than 6 months later when maybe I can't easily move out of the bad situation I'm in that I knew I should have avoided. Okay. So again, don't just look for what the answers are, but how the person you're dealing with answers them. Okay. All right, let's go over a few of these. So first, how's training structured and delivered? You should get a clear answer exactly on how you're going to be trained and then what accommodations you'll have to learn the business. How often can I receive coaching? Is it group coaching, one-on-one coaching? Both can be fantastic, but how frequent can you get it? Who do I call when I'm stuck in a case? Maybe you're in the field or on the phone, sales ready to be had, but you have a question and you can't move forward without getting it answered. Who can you call on to help? You should have somebody. How are leads generated and what do they cost me? You should have full clarity on if you're getting free leads or if you're buying leads, how much they cost, what the expected conversion rate would be if you're a good agent, what the actual price is going to be, and anything else associated with the leads that you need to know. How long have top producing agents been at your agency? So this is a good, although sometimes imperfect, strategy to measure the success of an agency long-term. Agents do come and go with agencies, but if there's somebody who's been there for a while, that's always a good validation that, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. This agency does have some validity because there have been successes long-term. What tech and CRM tools are provided? You'll want to know how you're going to contact. This is kind of niche specific. Like if I'm working from home selling final expense, I want to make sure my agency has a power dialer and a CRM to organize the tools. But if I was working face-to-face, tech is less important, right? So it just depends on what you're selling and what tech is necessary to optimize. What out-of-pocket expenses should I expect? You should not join an agency without knowing exactly, within a reasonable dollar amount, what you're going to be paying for ongoing monthly costs associated with leads, systems, etc. Because if you find it's too expensive, you just wasted a ton of your time and potentially some of your money. Whereas maybe another business model would make more sense that has less of that expense. And how are contracts structured? What are the release terms? So this is terminology you should know. Release means moving a carrier from one agency association to another agency association. This is important because you may find a carrier is really good in your niche, but if you move, you may not be able to use it if that agency doesn't release that contract to the new agency, right? So know this going in. Ask about releases. What does it take to get a release? How long do you have to wait before you're released? And ideally get that in writing. So if an agency can't answer these questions clearly, that's your answer, okay? Again, you don't need to hear them say, and they won't ever necessarily say it like totally negative. Like, well, you're an idiot for asking this. Of course, we never release, right? They're going to say something like, oh, that's a great question. The companies won't release this for 6 months, but the truth is they could. It's the companies. They're not telling you the full picture. They're counting on your ignorance. Well, they just lied to you by omission or just outright. I don't want to work with somebody like that. Like, if they're going to lie about me on this, they're going to lie about me on other things that maybe are more impactful, right? So again, judge what is said and how it's said. Okay. So understanding lead programs. So again, big part of joining an agency is how lead programs works, and not all of them are created equal. You need to know the trade-offs before you commit. So again, a lead is somebody who's interested in potentially buying. It's not a guaranteed sale like we talked about in the previous module. And so we're going to go into a couple of sources for leads, and I'm going to kind of identify the pros and cons of all of these Most agencies have one particular strategy they focus on and maybe an alternative strategy to supplement with, is what I've seen. So, warm sources are generally people that are in your extended network that you could potentially sell. So, a warm market would be your friends, family, referrals, referral networks. Maybe you go to a BNI group or you're part of a pickleball group, right? These are potentially referral networks or self-generated leads. If you have a social media channel or even just your own personal social media, these are ways you can generate leads there. So some people completely claim this is the best strategy, and I think there's some definite merit to it if you can extend it beyond just the immediate family and if you've got a large group of people to work with. But other people uh, hate it. They hate the idea of having to sell friends and family. I was one of those people in the beginning. I'm kind of neutral on it now, but I never wanted to sell anybody that I knew personally because I didn't want to ruin my relationship. One of the things my dad taught me running business was never hire friends or family. So selling is kind of like that. So I avoided the warm sources approach. So again, if you like or don't mind that strategy and you think you may have a very big network, then warm source strategies may work well. We see those a lot in the MLM strategies, especially what they call it sometimes the Project 100 or Project 200, Northwestern Mutual, New York Life. These kind of big companies do these still, and it does work if you follow through on it. All right. You can also now I'm going to actually show two here. There's paid sources, but these can also be provided to you for free. Again, these are just more or less the different types of leads that are out there in pro and cons. So you can have internet leads, which can consist of social media based leads like Facebook generated leads. These are great leads, especially for remote based sales strategies like and simple one call closes like final expense, most life insurance products, some healthcare products. They can work great. Conversion tends to be less because people have to pick up the phone when you call them. If they're not calling in most cases, they're not. But they're a great lead source. That's what we use at Dig Agency as our predominant approach. Direct mail is fantastic if you're selling in person, face to face, especially with Medicare and and final expense and simple life insurance sales products. I would not do this remotely. That conversion rates are higher and the cost is more expensive, but they are fantastic leads. And last but not least are age leads. These are leads that were generated at some point in the past. Time has passed, so there's a decay of interest. Like if I express interest in something 3 months ago, I may not be interested in it today. That's an age lead. These can be very powerful for brand new agents. I wholly believe in them. If anything, if you're buying leads, they're generally cheap, so they're a good way to practice. And then on the flip side is that if you're good on the phone, it doesn't take many sales to cover the expense if you bought the leads. So age leads can be very good. Other paid sources or sources you could use, live transfers like TV leads can also be a strategy where they call you, tends to have a huge economic cost that you have to circumvent. But if you're very good at it, it can be a very productive source of strategy. Door knocking leads or just door knocking in general, cold canvassing. I had an old friend in the business, Lewis would do this. And I went out on the field. I was like, that still works these days. This is like 10 years ago now. And he did it. He made a sale, sold a cancer policy just to a random door we approached. And it was fun. It was fun. And then agency provided leads kind of consist of all of these. So why should you care about this? Because a couple of things to understand about leads is there's no perfect lead source. Everybody's always after the magical leads that are going to give them infinite cash for little expense. It doesn't exist. Any lead source that you dial into, any of these on the screen and any others not mentioned that I've forgotten, are going to have their pros and their cons. And part of being in business, I'll mention this probably a lot because I say it a lot. A mature individual understands there's pros and cons, but that doesn't mean that they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You may have married a spouse. I have a spouse. And I assure you, if I asked her, are there some cons to Dave? Yeah. Where do I start? We're still married. Hopefully we will be permanently, and we will be. But the point is that you can have good and still have downsides. The key is to find the thing that you can accept the downsides, like me and my wife accepted me, as well as the good, right? So, like with Facebook leads, the con is getting them on the phone, but we can from a business standpoint, we can sell enough of them to create a profit, and we can scale it up and down. And there's some advantages to it that we like as an agency. So while there's definite downsides, the good is good enough, and we can make it work. And so as you get into your business, learning leads and looking at the agency, you need to know the good and the bad, and ask them, what do you like about the leads? What do you don't like about them? A good operator, a good agency owner will tell you about that and what to expect, and be fair about it. So let's talk about some agency red flags, things to be aware of and concerned of. So first of all, walk away in most cases if you see any of these. Again, I've done this so long that I just get cold feet. Like something is off. It's an intuition. I just divorce myself. Like, I'm too old for this BS. If it doesn't sit right, I'm leaving. I have a rule of thumb too. If you talk to me, I'll talk about my rules of operations a lot. And if I wake up 3 mornings in a row and I'm still thinking about something and it still isn't sitting right with me, I generally just get rid of it. Okay. Like, it should make sense, or it never makes sense, is generally how it is. So likewise, develop these rules for yourself and follow these, because again, you can either take experience from somebody like me who's done it for a long time, or you can experience this. They're just a humongous cost that you have to go through. So again, guaranteed income promises, ain't nobody going to promise a guarantee. Also, along with that is just absurd averages. I saw one company that said our average agent makes $122,000 a year. That's like, there's no way that the average is that. There's just no way. And it's not true. The Bureau of Labor Statistics averages at like 49,000 for an insurance agent. Okay. And there's a lot of agents that make very little, and a ton that make a lot. So you can't even trust an average if you look at and math well enough. But the fact that anybody would suggest something absurd as that, I would call into question everything about their operation. Even if it was true, what are they doing that's so special that they're 2 times the average of the nation? Doesn't make sense. Pressure to sign immediately. Look, you don't want a company pushing you into joining. They should show you the ropes, show you how things work, answer your questions, and it should be up to you. In my opinion, I don't work hard to make somebody join. Like, I'm like, here's how it works. We're great at what we do. We love what we do. If it's a good fit, great. If not, no problem. And the ball's in their court, because if I have to push somebody into joining, I'm going to have to push somebody into working, and I don't have time for that. So if you feel that effort is being pushed on, you just don't feel good because of the tactics they're doing. They put the contract over and they're just sign it now, or they imply that versus thinking about it if you're not 100% on board. That's not you. It's them. Okay. Vague or missing training plan. Again, no structure, no support. You ain't got training. Just go find somewhere else to go. Lots of agencies provide training and support. Recruiting emphasized over production. Boy, this is huge. Look, a lot of these companies are multi-level marketing. They recruit more than they sell. If in the business opportunity overview, if you're looking at a company, if they're really excited about talking about recruiting, that is a multi-level marketing company. And what they'll lack, in my experience, is the systems to help you train to be a successful salesperson. They want you to recruit people to recruit and spend less time in all the elements necessary to prospect and close business consistently. Okay. So it's not that recruiting's bad. It's just that you have to learn to walk before you run. You have to sell successfully before you can be a resource to somebody, therefore recruit them and take care of them. So don't put the cart before the horse. Instead, focus on production first, not recruiting. Hidden costs and fees. Always ask what comes out of your pocket. Again, you should ask about what does it cost to join, what are the leads. That's usually the biggest fee. Any tech fees, etc. It should be full disclosure. Doesn't mean you'll like it, but disclosure is what you're looking for. Anything hidden means you don't need to join them. Unclear compensation structure. You should be able to explain compensation to a 5th grader. Okay. It's like, okay, when you make this kind of sale, you're going to get that kind of commission. Done. That's it. It should be that simple. If there's one company out there that I've heard, it's like you get paid 100% of another percentage, and it sounds better than it is. And the way it was structured is because most people don't understand math. And so they'll say, I've got 100% commission, but they really have 100%, really have 90% of 50%, which is a 45% commission, but they'll talk around like they have a 90% because they honestly don't understand, multiplying percentages. So if it gets complicated like that or just seems like a scam, it's probably is. Don't join. No accessible support system. Kind of talked about that earlier. You should have help getting onboarded, help with tech, help with sales, and leaders who can't answer basic questions. Look, that's the biggest red flag. You should be able to get these questions answered succinctly, politely too, and with full transparency. And these are principles that protect you everywhere. It's not about and look, good companies and their sub agencies can do this. So you have to ask these questions, be aware of this everywhere. So some green flags, really the opposite of everything: transparent leadership, accessible mentors who still produce. That's a really good one. Not necessarily always the case required, but like for example, our trainers are actively selling along with mentoring, and they get advice from people in the field doing it like themselves. It's great. Clear expectations from day one. Again, you should know exactly what to do each step of the way in order to get contracted, get licensed if you're not already, get appointed with the carriers, what to study, what to focus on, what calls to attend to learn. Realistic income conversations. You don't want somebody saying, you're going to make 100 grand in the next 90 days. Is it possible? Yeah. Is it probable? No. But you want to talk about what's real. We're eventually going to have a discussion on compensation soon where we'll go into that because it's really important to have a realistic approach to earning capabilities. It's amazing, but it takes some time. Structured onboarding and training, how to get up and running, not just on the sales side, but on the preparation side. Modern tech and CRM systems, collaborative, supportive culture where people help each other, and long tenured top producers. It is important to see some people have been around for a while because it shows you there's a level of consistency in the business model itself. Okay. So there we go. Oh yeah, MLM and sales organizations. Let's talk about the difference. So just in case you don't know, an MLM is a multi-level marketing company. And a lot of people hate MLMs because they typically prey on people who are opportunity seeking, who typically are down on their luck. And they tend to pry away their contacts and information to sell them product and services and exhaust that supply before moving on to the next person. But there's also this whole culture that comes with MLMs that's really, I don't know how to describe it. It's really invasive. It's like this fake positivity type of culture, and it's not really positive. It's really a cult. It's really what it is. They develop their own lingo. They have their own ascendancies, their own statuses, etc. And people tend to stay too long because they're reared into this whole cult like surroundings. And so a lot of these MLMs, a lot of these organizations have that cult atmosphere. Sometimes they don't, and it's still a bad setup, but a lot of them have it. So it's just important to identify it when you see it. And I'll give you a couple of tips here on kind of how to see it and stay away from it. So the big thing is with an MLM structure, it's a big push on recruiting. They want you getting sold on having, hey, if you have 20 people under you and they write 2 sales, you're going to make 10,000 a month and you don't have to lift a finger. The compensation plan is tied to team building. You'll see the way that you make moves in your comp is by building a higher and bigger team. And the turnover is super common in these companies. And it's just a terrible way to do business, in my opinion. Most MLMs just have this cult mentality. They drain you of your resources, your contacts. People don't want to ever talk to you again. They try to brainwash you into staying and that they're the best and everybody else is the worst. All this typical cult stuff. Okay. Whereas a sales organization, there can be a cult atmosphere with a sales organization, right? It can be all about hustle and make money, the grind culture, the hustle culture, right? So, but the idea is more emphasized that you're going to sell as a matter of being successful. So it's more performance driven. Money is made by sales, not recruiting. And it's generally a better place to start and really where you want to focus on, because usually sales focused organizations, they want to provide you the system of learning and applying to the system to make money. And then you'll have hybrid organizations that do a little bit of both. They'll start with sales, eventually move to recruiting. That can be fine. It just depends on the underlying culture. And again, you can't look at the major player, the major IMO. You have to look at the or even the major company, like if you're working for Allstate, you have to look at the individual office or the regional and see what their value systems are, because there can be variations between two different offices with the same company. One can be very much production oriented, the other recruiting oriented. So just keep that in mind. All right. So a couple of contract items as we wrap this up, you should understand. First of all, no commission contracts. Understand your pay structure, split commissions. If you're recruiting, what override terms are. You should have some clarity right away on what you're going to get paid, what the average sale is per sale that you make. Carrier appointments, which ones you are going to appoint with, which one you're going to sell. Very important as well. If it doesn't work out, how you can get a release. It should be very clear what the process is to move your carrier appointments elsewhere. If there's any non-solicitation clauses, understand what those are. This is common with many organizations to protect their client base. Chargeback responsibility, how chargebacks are paid back, to what extent you have to pay a chargeback. Is it the full amount, prorated amount, the questions they ask, and do you own the client book of business or not? A pro tip, in most captive organizations, you don't buy leads, so you probably don't own the client. And really any free lead organization not going to own the client. Whereas if you're buying your own leads and investing them, you should own the book of business because you're taking a significant financial risk, okay? So again, always feel comfortable to take time to read a contract, think about it. I just had a client or a new agent. She was like, hey, what's this particular part of the contract mean? I just want some clarity. And I sat down, read it, and then sent her a Loom video. And I said, hey, very good question. Let me answer why this says what it does and what it means practically for you. So that's the kind of mentality you should have. I didn't chastise her like, you're an idiot for even thinking we would do what you think, right? Or whatever. You know, I addressed it coherently and calmly because it's her career. It's your career we're talking about, y'all. And look, you can make a huge mistake or it could be the wildest success ever. People should respect that. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So bottom line, the agency with the highest commission isn't always where you'll earn the most. Hopefully that's the biggest takeaway here today, okay? The mentor and the systems involved often make up for the difference in commission, especially for the new folks that are out there. So bottom line, that is the steps I would give you to concern yourself with building an agency. Now, a couple of previews here on Module 3. Now that you know how to choose the right agency, it's time to learn what you're going to actually run into as an agent. So what we're going to be talking about in Module 3 includes daily life as an insurance agent, the emotional highs and lows of the business. This is a totally different business than anything you've ever done, I assure you. And I'm going to be honest with you about not just the good, but the ugly too. We're going to talk about expectations as what a new agent goes through, the excitement, and then the reality that hits. And through that process, how to survive the most pivotal part of your journey, which is that first 90 days, and then scaling up your activity so you make more money. And why most agents struggle in the business, and you'll learn how to avoid that and how you can think differently so you're successful. So Module 3 is the mindset and reality show. It may be at times a little depressing, but it's all done for your betterment and ultimately your survival and eventual thriving in the business. In today's module for our new agent orientation masterclass, we're talking about the reality of the insurance business. And Uncle Dave here is going to tell you everything you need to know that ain't nobody telling you. All you've been hearing so far about joining your agency is the good stuff. Well, I'm about to tell you all the bad stuff and the good stuff too, because my interest is in giving you the truth, both the good and the ugly. Because you need to know, and you deserve to know exactly how this business works with as much transparency as possible, because it's your career that's on the line. So I take it seriously. I hope you do too. And so let's begin. So first of all, like I said, this is probably one of the most important mindset modules in this entire course. And the key thing here to understand is a lot of people don't quit because they lack the talent. It's because they expected something that was entirely different than what they got. And largely this is pushed by the multi-level marketing companies out there that run a cult, that are trying to find victims to fill its coffers and to chew you up and spit you out. So they don't want to tell you the bad stuff. They want to brainwash you to working for them and believing that's only good stuff. Okay. So I want to help you understand what's normal, what isn't, and really to prepare you, especially for that first year, because the first year is the most difficult part of the business. Okay. And a lot of the reasons it's difficult is because your expectations aren't aligned with reality because of what some people suggest should be true, but other times because what they didn't suggest and what they omitted to tell you. So things we'll cover here today: why so many agents quit the business, what makes insurance different from other careers, what your first month actually looks like, the good and the bad, the emotional roller coaster, confidence and how it comes after competence, why rejection is a part of the profession, what successful agents do actually that's different, what this business really rewards as far as success goes, common emotional traps to avoid, and then building your long-term career. Again, a lot of mindset stuff today. All right. So again, you're new here. You're probably getting started in the business or about to. This is so important. You're going to love this. It's going to make a big impact. So again, why? Let's start off with the failure principle. Again, I've mentioned this and will continue to. 90% or more of new agents quit or fail in their first 12 months. And there's a lot of reasons why. Okay. One part of it is with the arrangement they're in to sell. The other part is their personal issues. So I don't want to sit here and tell you it's all their fault. It would be a lie. It's partially the fault of the agency, and it's partially the fault of you, the agent, for failing. Okay. You need to hold yourself accountable. And so you watching this, getting into it, you have to understand, like, you need to look inward as well as outward, not just one direction and blame, be a victim mindset crap. How are you responsible for the circumstances you're in? And you are responsible because you're watching this video, all right? Because we're going to inform you of what to pay attention to. So some things here that are common with what happens and why people fail. First of all, wrong expectations, either through their own personality or through the agency's expectations. They're told that they're going to make a lot of money fast, okay? And that they should just get it and scale, meaning sell more and more and more fairly quickly, when the reality is that it may take more time. And again, in business, everything takes more time than you perceive it would be, regardless of what somebody says. So it's likely that you're going to take more time to succeed and learn the business, okay? So if you get setbacks early on and you're not meeting that either prearranged, idea that you came up with that you should be making money immediately, which is false. You shouldn't believe that, especially if watching this, or your agency suggested so. That dissonance, difference in expectation, reality can cause you to quit. Okay. Joining the wrong agency. Our whole module tool covered that. And if you're in the wrong environment, right train, wrong track, then you can fail. And that's terrible because this business is so awesome. If you had yourself personally prepared, but in a bad situation, not a good thing. Financial pressure. So income can be slower than expected. It can be altered by the fact that if you're buying leads, it can be less than what you actually receive in commissions. And all of that stress and pressure starts to mess with your thinking. You start getting commission breath. You start making poor decisions about what leads you buy, how many leads you buy, and your perceptions of the business, and therefore how you approach your clients. So financial pressure is a really big one. There is a way around that. It's called free leads. More on that eventually. Fear of rejection. If you have a mental hang up about somebody telling you no, or they're not interested, or telling you to go to hell, then you need to quickly get over that, because it's not personal. It's rejecting your product. You need to learn how to just deal with it and develop thick skin. Inconsistent effort. This is a big one, y'all. I run an agency. I see it all the time. People say they're going to do one thing and they terribly fall short. I'm going to put 30 hours on the phone this week, and they only put in 10. I wonder why you failed the business. You can have everything else perfect, but if you don't work, you don't put the time in that's necessary, that's on you. And that happens a lot. I think that has to do a lot with the change and going from a W-2 to an independent contractor environment. We'll hit on this, I think, at this module, but it's all on you. If you don't put the time in, you have to be consistent. And if you're just inconsistent, you start thinking, well, the business sucks, but you're just not putting enough time in because everybody goes through cold spells. And quitting too soon. You just get out too soon before you really go through some tough spots. Part of growth is adversity. You don't avoid adversity. You deal with adversity and overcome it. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're going to face it. Okay. So you got to be prepared with this stuff and understand all of these things. If you have the right expectations, obviously the right arrangement, like the agency you're a part of, et cetera, can make a huge difference. So what makes selling insurance different? Well, a traditional job, you get an hourly pay or salary pay. It's predictable income. Your boss tells you what to do. You have an employee mindset. You're clocking in, clocking out. And there's short-term thinking. You just got to make it to the weekend, right? Guess what? It ain't like that in the insurance business. When you come in, the vast majority of you, especially if you're selling life or health insurance, are on a straight commission. You wake up unemployed every single morning. Meaning you got to go find somebody to sell something to if you want to make an income. Okay. It's kind of scary if you think about it. So you have to develop not an employee mindset, but a business owner mindset. You have to have the character traits that are deployed in a successful business enterprise, such as being self-directed, being entrepreneurial, putting in the time, and thinking more than just the next appointment or the next day. And you've got to be able to weather the storm. You're building a business, whether you like it or not, even if your agency that you're thinking about joining doesn't think about it that way. You need to think that way. You need to have what call Napoleon Hill, great influential productivity coach, accurate thinking. You need to be accurate about how you think. And you're running a business. It's nothing different from that. So here's how your first month looks like. You're super excited. You're pumped. You got your license. You join your first agency. You can take on the world, right? Week 2 starts. You're like, whoa, I got to know a bunch of stuff. I didn't know it would be this complicated. Okay. Then week 3 happens. You get on the phones. Oh man, this is harder than I thought it was. Did I make the right choice? This is difficult. I don't know if this is for me. And then week 4, it gets worse. Reality sets in. Oh man, this is tough. But then you also see that there is actually people getting results. So I say this because you want to normalize this. This is all completely normal stuff. Nobody gets into this business not experiencing this. Okay. So this is part of the ride, man. Like you're going to experience this kind of adversity. And you want to experience. Why do you want this? Let me ask you this. Why do you want to be frustrated and doubtful? And why do you want everybody to do it? Because it thins the herd. The last thing you want is a business where week 2, it's easier than I thought. Week 3, I'm more confident than ever. Week 4, I'm making tons of sales. Because what happens is so can everybody else. And then you have a business model that's swamped, saturated, and lead prices are higher and commissions are lower. And there's very little opportunity left. So you actually should appreciate how difficult it is because it gets rid of the weak hands. The key is not to be a weak hand by normalizing and internalizing my training and also this mentality approach and getting your mindset straight. And this is where this emotional roller coaster comes in, right? You get excitement, you get fear. You get confidence, you experience doubt. You have hope, but then you get frustrated. And then something finally breaks through. And it's not necessarily 1 through 6 to get to 7. You may have to go through 1 through 6, 20, 30, 50, 100 times before the breakthrough happens. Sometimes it happens and there's no obvious evidence of it actually happening. It's the strangest thing. And then you build your confidence, okay? So the goal, especially because you experience this a ton in the beginning, the goal is to survive this cycle, okay? It took me 3 years before my wife could not tell if I had an amazing day or the worst day ever. Just come home, it was over. And I would wake up back up, have amnesia, start with a blank slate, which is the way I like it, and just go at it again and just execute the system. So the point being is that it's an emotional roller coaster. Again, we want it to be that way. We want it so it thins the herd. If you can't handle it, you're out. But the guy who can is in. You want this because of that benefit. So, and also understand confidence comes after competence. So You're going to get confident by practicing, presenting, having a base level of understanding, and then executing on that. Look, in the beginning, how can you be confident when you've never done the thing or you've done it well? You just have to kind of act as if, is the old saying. You just have to do it anyway and know that it comes with time. As you get competent, you'll have the internalized ability to do it, but you really don't need to have confidence because of experience to get started. You have to take a leap of faith. This is selling insurance is a faith-based argument. You will never feel 100% confident. Nobody ever does starting any new venture. But you have to have the faith in yourself that, and the faith above, that everything's gonna be all right, that you're gonna take that first step forward. You're gonna try the business out fully and wholeheartedly, knowing and committing yourself because you've done the due diligence and did the research, this is the best thing you could do. And that in the long term, you'll find out that's the case, but you'll weather the storm in the beginning. So again, this is where a lot of this perfectionism comes from, or aggressively getting ready and then never doing anything from a sales standpoint. Don't be that guy, okay? Remember, rejection is part of the profession. You want rejection because it thins the herd, like so many of the other things I mentioned. Hearing no is not personal. Hanging up is just a disconnection. Don't take it personal. A lost sale means probably wasn't meant to be. Okay, find ways to cope with rejection. I'm a people pleaser. I don't like to be rejected either, right? I mean, if you're a human being, nobody likes rejection. So the best way to understand this is you have to overcome this to be successful, and or just ignore it. And all of this is easier said than done, but there's no easy way. But I can tell you this, the longer you do it, the more this becomes the case, okay? So what do successful agents actually do every day? You'll notice here, prospecting, meaning finding prospects, practicing, follow up with their clients, learn, meet people, improve, track activity, repeat. This is all action oriented. What the most successful agents do is about 80% of their time is finding somebody to sell to and then selling to them in that mix, okay? And then 20% of that time is tracking results, looking for opportunities to improve, okay? They do what's called Kaizen, continuous improvement. They think about their calls that they did. Maybe they listen to their sales calls, listen to what went right and how they could improve. And they're always working on themselves, but what they're realizing is that they're not filling their 80% of the time with avoidance behavior, you know, like reading industry news, reading a Facebook group on insurance. It can be beneficial and it feels that way, but is it really moving the ball on your income? Of course not. So get right with what matters. And what matters is seeing the people or talking to the people, because they got your money. You got to go get it. And being on Facebook or Reddit ain't going to cut it. Okay. So long term, what this business really rewards comes down first. The foundation is daily activity. Guys, this is where 80% of agents fail. They don't even put in the requisite daily activity. Okay. Well, I harp over and over again, for the love of God, and I mean that, work, because you cannot build the castle without the foundations. And it's activity, that 80%, seeing the people, that builds ultimately up to the long-term income. Okay. So by putting in the time and arguably more time than average, you develop skills faster, which then develop consistency, which develop relationships, a reputation, and then long-term substantial income. Okay. But it all starts at the bottom, guys. Okay. Now, what's cool about this business, and this is a cool impact, and this is huge, is it's really important to get your first sale as humanly fast as possible, because if you can get your first sale done, it dismisses a lot of the problems in your life that you'll associate with this business. You go from, I hope I can do this, and just the doubt, to I know I can do this. For me, when I made that first sale, I was in the first day in the field. I had 4 sales presentations that blinked. I was kind of wondering if I should be doing this. And the 5th one was the end of the night. It was like June 6th. And I was in a trailer in Wildwood, Georgia. It was hot. There were wasps flying around this dude's trailer. And I saw a $100 a month policy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I made like $900. I make this like every 2 weeks with my personal training gym I was doing. I was like, this is great. I can do this. I love this. Why would anybody complain about doing this? Of course, it wasn't that easy. It was hard. I had ups and downs. But that was when it just went, I love this. I got to do this, you know? So I hope this, and this happens for a lot of people. So the thing is to get to that first sale as humanly fast as possible. Because when you see it happen and see the money, that there's a doubting Thomas inside of all of us. And when we see it, we believe it. And there's something profoundly inspiring about that. So my takeaway for you is make a sale as fast as possible. I tell people that join my company, you got to make a sale in your first week, all out, because making that sale makes this real, and it gives you hope and inspiration as opposed to just sitting around and hoping that what is being said is true. So, oh yeah, there's common emotional traps here too. These are things that you have to deal with on a daily basis as an insurance agent. Just be prepared. So don't compare yourself to others. You definitely want to strive to get to the top producer levels, but understand it takes time. Okay. It might take you a couple months, a couple years, but it's not a fair fight, and it's not fair for yourself to beat yourself up too much. Don't be doing analysis paralysis. Sometimes the best way to move forward is with incomplete information to do, and this is really more so for starting off. A lot of agents get started and they want all the information before they do anything. You probably need to be about 60 to 70% clarity with 30 to 40% unclarity or lack of clarity before to take action. Waiting any longer than that never happened. Waiting any sooner than that, you're probably going to make unnecessary mistakes. Perfectionism is also analysis paralysis. Again, don't fall into that gap. That's just a big mistake. I had an early on agent that was like this, and it annoyed the crap out of me. And I vowed never to recruit another perfectionist again. Impatience. Look, this is a get rich slow business, not a get rich quick business. I like fast money, don't get me wrong, but the truth is it's slow. It takes time. You're going to have to learn this slower than you think, and it's going to be a lot more to learn than you think that it is from the beginning. And mastery takes time. Shiny object syndrome. This is what a lot of agents do. They get involved in the business. It's like good enough, but there's definitely some bad. But there's an impetus inside them that they're always looking around, scoping out what else sounds good. And then they get entranced in the ideal of what is being presented to them. They jump to the next thing to sell. So I had an agent once who had 18 years of sales experience in insurance, but maybe had switched every year to different insurance products, markets, et cetera. So he never developed long-term domain mastery of the product. So, and he always bounced around. He bounced around from my agency to another. He was really good, but he never was successful. He never, ever got successful because he could not stay in one place long enough to dial in and crush it. Okay. And so my point is that avoid the allure, the temptation to switch too soon. Okay. Now I'm not saying if you're in a bad situation that it's bad to look elsewhere. You've learned in module 2 what bad looks like. So maybe if you step forward and it isn't what it was supposed to be, that's a valid reason to switch. But if you're in a situation where you otherwise have a great opportunity and it's a fair arrangement, but you're getting just entranced by something else, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because I promise you, this bouncing stuff never ends. And you got to fix that issue with you of commitment. It's a commitment issue. And you have to understand that part of developing yourself into a professional that makes a lot of money is enduring adversity. You can't avoid adversity. It's a part of the process. I wish you could. But for most of us, the vast majority of us have to go through things that are tough to be successful. And then also negative self-talk. You're probably the worst critic out there. Don't let yourself get into your head too much. Understand there's ebbs and flows. And think positive. Positivity is not everything, but it does help to look for the bright side versus just constantly talk yourself down. Same thing. Get rid of people who talk you down too. Like there are people out there who won't support your entrepreneurial endeavors. They'll criticize you. They'll look down on you. Screw them and get rid of those people in your life. They're not good for you because they're just going to influence you to basically keep you down on their level, right? Because deep down, it's probably some level of envy or some bad mindset that they want to poison you with. So successful agents thinking, difference between what average is. Average is, I hope this works. I need motivation. This is too hard. I failed. I'm not ready yet. Whereas a professional says, I'll improve with repetition. I know improvement is in the process. I need discipline, not motivation. I don't need to be motivated. I need to apply myself even if I'm not. That is the trick, too. I learned something valuable, looking for something to take away from even from sales that don't close. Again, many a times in my career and life, the biggest improvements have come from the biggest failures. Hard is where others quit. Like I said, be joyful. When you run into a situation that's extremely difficult and you question your sanity, so does everybody else. And most quit because of it. Not you, though. Not you, because you know this is a test. The insurance gods above are testing you. They're testing your mettle. And are you going to live through it or not? And that's ultimately a decision you have to make if you are or not. And I'll get ready by doing. Taking action is ultimately how you learn this business. It's not sitting around and waiting to figure stuff out. So bottom line, you don't become successful because you never struggle. You become successful because you don't quit during the struggle. Ah, yes. So notice the struggle is assumed. And that's it for the mindset. I hope that helped you understand the mindset of being an insurance agent, the daily grind. And what we're going to be talking about in module 4 is taking the mindset, the appropriate agency you've joined, and then building your career from day 1 to day 5. What to expect in the first week to the first month, 90 days, year, first year, and then years 2 through 5. We'll talk more specifically about schedules, habits, and then career progression that takes you from where you start to eventually where you will end up. All right, in today's module, we're going to be talking about building your insurance career from the start to the next 5 years. This is an important module to formulate a long-term vision for where you want to be in your insurance career. We're going to go through the very beginnings all the way to the long term and consider things like your mindset, as well as strategically which products you sell and so forth. This is a really important long-term perspective to develop because this business takes you on many adventures and many turns and twists. And having a strategy on where you want to go and having clarity on how to get there, well, it's important. So let's begin. So we're going to talk about clarity, knowing what you want to do in your first week, month, and 90 days, developing confidence so that you understand what success actually looks like, and direction, meaning building the habits and mindsets that separate top agents from those who quit. So let's get started. So this is our milestones we're going to be looking at from weeks 1, month 1, first 90 days, very important. Then year 1, and then years 2 through 5. And everybody starts exactly where you're at now. So starting from the beginning, here's how you get going. So from the first day, you decide to join your agency, whatever it is, get started immediately. Don't just join and then go on vacation. I had people who join and then they go on vacation for a week or two. I'm like, come on, man, you're losing momentum. This is like a huge opportunity. You should be on the ball. Okay. So get ready, complete contracting, complete paperwork, get going. Immediately that day or the following day, get into the training, learn your products, learn the sales process, involve yourself in live training, involve yourself in listening to top producers' calls. They should have some level, if not all of that, available. And the faster you get onto it, the more momentum you're building. I'll say as a side note, this is the one thing that new agents have that experienced pros don't. It's momentum and excitement. You need to leverage this temporary state because it doesn't stay this way. It never does in life, marriage, any long-term commitment. These things wax and wane. You need to recognize where you're at in your life. You're committing to something incredible. And that beginning is where your excitement is always the highest. So leverage it by utilizing it and being momentous about your commitment. And then first couple of days, see if you can do a ride along, shadow an agent, listen to top producers calls. Again, see what it's really like to sell this stuff. Get yourself prepared. And then through day 4 through 14, this depends on what you're selling, how long it gets appointed. Get on the phone. Go see the people, okay? Keep your momentum going. Again, you can prospect with your warm market list. You don't have to. Whatever you're being taught to do, do it. That's the point. And do as much of it as possible, okay? Time is the greatest predictor of success here. You can be successful part-time, but the more time you put in, the higher odds you're going to make sales. Okay. And then as you make your first calls, you should be making sales depending on the products you're selling. You're setting your first appointments, and you should be seeing sales with many of the products that are out there fairly quick within that first week of actively being on the phone. Not the case if you're selling long sales cycle products like annuities, possibly commercial products, etc. But if you're doing like what most people do is a basic product like final expense, health insurance, these are all achievable sales you can get immediately if you're looking for them. Okay. Pro tip at the bottom. The agent who gets a sale in the first week of live dialing or selling door to door is much more likely to still be in the business at year one. Do I need to repeat myself? I don't think I do. That is the very important pro tip you need to take to heart. You need to see results, bar none. Okay? That because it's like I said in the last module, it is so motivating to get results. If you're not getting them, it's hard to keep going. It's only rational to feel discouraged if you're not getting results. So your first month panning out here after that first week, what are we looking at? You're going from observer to seller. You're going from learner to action taker, to doer, okay? You're observing, you're practicing, you're selling, and most importantly, you're refining based off of what worked and what didn't work. I liken the learning process to having a boat with a multitude of holes in them. It's slowly leaking, and every presentation is an opportunity to plug a hole, especially every failed sale. You're going to get more failures than successes, by the way. That's the norm. So every opportunity that you get to experience a no sale, sit back and think and reflect, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Where can I improve? And that's you plugging the hole. Now, another important thing with this feedback loop we're developing here is to fix the problem the first time. It's not possible always, but the higher likelihood we can fix the thing that was broken immediately, you find the hole doesn't unplug and then start draining again. It stays plugged. And you do this long enough, and eventually there's very little holes left. And even if there are, they're not going to necessarily drown the ship, right? Nobody's perfect is what the point is. So the point is to refine and improve. And that's something that your mentor can help you with, but you have to actively work at, okay? So your target should be to make sales in the first month. 2 sales, 5 sales. Personally, if you're with me, I don't care. I just want to see some results because that's the greatest predictor that you have opportunity long-term. So month 1 mindset, progress over perfection. Are you getting better? Are you making less mistakes? Are you not screwing up enough? That's progress, okay? Every no is practice. There's opportunity in those no's to learn. And remember, you use your manager and your coach. Use them. They're here to help you. Now, looking out in the first 90 days, that first month has been learning, refining, getting better. The second month, you've learned a ton. You're executing at a higher level. You're getting more confident because you're seeing results. And in month 3, you're building upon that. You're finding that weakest link. You're fixing it. You're repeating it. You should be doing a minimum of 15, 20 hours of dial time if you're doing final expense over the phone or door to door or any kind of product that's a one-call close. I really wouldn't recommend any less than that, more if possible. You should be at this point, depending on your time commitment, making 5 to 20 sales a month, minimum, okay? Wide gap there, depends on your total time availability to sell. And a lot of this is just showing up and putting the time in, guys. And this is where a lot of people screw up. I see it. People don't even put in 15 hours. And I'm like, why are you even doing this business? I see it in my business, okay? I'm just being honest with you. But the ones who do the 15 to 20 hours, they're making sales pretty consistently. May not be a lot, some better than others, and there's more room to improve, of course. But there's just a function of time that just makes the biggest difference. So success looks like this, in my opinion, after a year doing this. There's 3 different ways that we measure it. By a year in, and typically sooner, you know your product's cold. You know how rates look at certain age ranges. You know which underwriting situations fit certain carriers and don't others. You can handle objections just like that, no problem. You understand your clients more than they even understand themselves. And you're constantly looking and studying who is the best performer and looking for ways to not only adapt what they do to your presentation, but to beat them too. You're selling 15 to 20 hours a week. You're writing 3 to 5 policies minimum weekly. You're building referral habits from the first day. Big mistake I made, depending just on purchased leads. I wish I had developed referrals early on because they help a ton and they don't cost you anything, especially if you're buying leads. And you're being accountable to your own activity, tracking it to ensure that what you expect, you're inspecting it. So you inspect, are you doing what you say you're going to do? Thus completing the feedback loop. And you're also improving, you're looking for opportunities with peers to look for the criticism or critiquing, more say, from them. You're listening to your presentations, looking for ways to actively improve. You're always thinking about, okay, what's the biggest thing I can fix this week? Where's the biggest way I can improve? You're looking for ways to marginally improve every single week. There's a constructive direction you're going. And you're celebrating small wins as they compound, okay? And they do compound as you start to add up all those things. This is very much like sports, guys. I do jiu-jitsu. And if I'm learning a technique, maybe my win this week, like this morning, was rolling with a black belt. My goal there is not to get swept or submitted. And I think I did that. So it's not necessarily passing his guard, mounting him, submitting him. He's so good. As long as I don't get swept and he has no opportunity to do it, I've won that battle, right? And so that's a way to look at it. Like, I didn't make that mistake, even if you didn't make the sale. That will start to eventually compound into overall improved success. So look for the opportunities to see improvement, okay? Now, years 2 through 5 is really where the business gets best. The first year is about survival, developing the fundamentals of success, as I talked about previously. But now you get through years 2 through 5. If you haven't, you've began to specialize in this period of time. And I really think you start to either track towards building your own agency, recruiting others to duplicate yourself, or you start to scale into multiple products. So for example, a common thing in final expense when people start with us is they eventually pick up Medicare or health insurance, because final expense, while it's a great first year commission product, it's a terrible renewal product for the agent. So adding in Medicare or health insurance adds a stream of renewal income that can help diversify how you earn money, okay? So, and that can happen at different periods of time. For me, I got into agency building about 2.5 to 3 years in. I never got into personally selling Medicare or ACA. So it just depends on the individual and what their goals are. And I think a big goal of yours should be to eventually transition to some extent either to override pay, where you don't have to personally work, or pay based off of residual streams from a residual product like Medicare or ACA. There is something about this business when you're making 6 figures and you got to take the whole month off to go travel abroad or do something incredible that is really just amazing. And I've done it multiple times. I could never do this in a normal job. It's something that's approachable eventually in the longer term for most people. And to afford the lifestyle, it's not just about money. It's about doing the things in your life that really matter to you. And with enough time and effort, you can absolutely do that in this business. So a typical day, of course, I start in the morning at 6. I get my exercise in, read industry content, eat right. You're ready to go. Some agents get on the phone as early as 8. I think that's a great idea. 7:30 to 8. In most cases, it's compliant to call it 8. You may call businesses earlier than that. Set my goals for the morning. Start calling at 9. Take a lunch break. I think it's important to take breaks here and there. This is a full performance-based activity, so taking breaks is important to keeping your mind situated. Go back to call the block again between 1 and 5. And then debrief, think about what I did right, what I can improve, and then call it a day. I personally worked from 5 to 9 multiple times a week because I wanted the opportunity to sell people more than just regular working hours, because I'm crazy like that. But I think you should be crazy like that too. Don't have to be, but it helps. The habits of successful agents. Again, we talked about this last time. Prospecting every day, doing the same and committing the same level of prospecting activity. Continuous learning, listening to sales calls, your own calls, top producers' calls. Do that 30 minutes a day. Not a lot to ask for. Helps a ton. Relationship building, if you're in more of a relationship building oriented insurance product sale, very important to do that. Track your activity, see where you're at, benchmark yourself. Can you do better? Can you beat yourself? Try to always outdo yourself is really important. Client services, help your clients out, and know what your goals are. The more clarity you have on what you ultimately want to accomplish and what a good year looks like for you, you can break it down into micro goals from quarterly, monthly, weekly to daily. And you want to look at goals based off of activity, not sales, because it's the first input is you taking action. And by taking consistent action, you can start to derive what kind of outcome you'll get, although that's random to some extent. What isn't is if you put effort in and it's cumulative, you're going to get some level of expected outcome. So measuring progress correctly, just kind of like we talked about. What things will discourage you, especially in the beginning, is looking at your bank account this month, commission per policy, size of your biggest sale, how you compare to others, whether you feel successful. These are all like emotionally charged things that it's important to know, but it's not really the full picture. What you really want to concern yourself is what I would call process metrics. So, did you dial or knock your goals today? Did you run the set amount of appointments if you're running appointments per week that you do? Did you deliver the amount of presentations you promised yourself and your goal was this month? And from there, you get policies written for a month and you get the ultimate outcome. So the point is that what I want you to be concerned with and what will help you survive the first 90 days and into the first 5 years is being process oriented. Even we are at the agency level. Like I'm not looking at sales so much as are we doing the activity that is possible to get the kind of sales that we want? Because we know our numbers well enough to really predictably arrive at how many sales we're going to get based off of what our agents can do and their historical sales averages. So I'm all activity oriented at my level, but it's the same thing at your level too. It matters just as much, if not more. So again, this is the career progression, how long it takes to go from new agent to experienced agent to team leader to business owner. And again, to the extent that you go to business owner, depends. You can always stay an agent, diversify products, add in more cash flow or passive income based products. And then this is how it looks over time as far as things that you want to build on: renewals, referrals, leadership overrides, etc. And then some common career mistakes. So this is really a very important slide here. Kind of along the lines of that shiny object syndrome, you see agency hopping. I know a very good agent who I like personally that has switched probably 6 or 7 agencies in like 2 years. And it's nothing wrong with these agencies. She just has a hard time committing. She always sees more opportunities elsewhere, but for some reason, in 3 to 6 months, they're not opportunities anymore. And so at some point, it's like maybe you're the problem, or maybe there's some perspective you have that needs to be questioned before you hop. And when you do that, you have to restart your momentum. You got to learn a whole new process, and you lose a lot of the leverage that you had through the experience. Okay. So I would, again, it's better to do your research on the front end, know what you want to accomplish, and then find an agency to stick with for several years, assuming nothing dramatically changes. Waiting to feel ready. Look, your feelings don't matter. Okay. You need to learn how to do what's necessary, even if you don't want to. I mean, I don't feel motivated all the time. I'm tempted to do other things than work. It affects everybody, including the highly successful and the highly productive. It's just something we all have to deal with. And like, you just have to grow up and not depend on emotions to do things, right? You don't have to have emotions, guys. Like, you just do it anyway. And if you can train yourself just to do things without having to have a requirement of feeling a certain way, you're way ahead of everybody. Ignoring activity tracking. If you can't track it, you can't fix it. If you expect something and you don't inspect it, you're in trouble. You won't find ways to improve. It is easy to blind yourself from that and claim ignorance, but the numbers are the numbers, whether you track them or not. Avoid your manager. Be honest with your manager. Ask them guidance. Tell them to give you feedback. Tough conversations are where growth occurs. Focusing on income too early. Again, we want you to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, but the reality is it takes time. And what matters more is inputs, meaning your activity, dials, knocks, etc., more than the outputs, because the inputs come before the outputs, but they will come only when the inputs are put in. And then quitting after a bad week. Like, look, everybody has bad weeks. Everybody has hard times. If you quit, you're just proving my theory about thinning the herd because you had a hard week. Look, life sucks. There's hard times in life, no matter what it is that you're going to do. You're just running from reality. You're being immature. Okay. Tough love. But if you start doing this stuff, you're just never going to get ahead anywhere in life. So might as well hear it now instead of somebody lie to you and say, oh, blame the agency or something like that. Okay. So that's my reality check. All right. Get these habits ingrained now. Okay. Because it's habit force and it's developing your character and most importantly, your consistency and discipline that matters more than your connections, your skill, your IQ. Those are all like nice things to have, but aren't necessary because even smart people or highly networked people, if they lack discipline, they're going to fail. Okay. So discipline and consistency are the name of the game in this business and will always lead to the most successful people. So in our next module, to give you a little sneak peek, we're going to talk about financial survival. So we're going to talk about budgeting, how to survive the income gap in the first 90 days, especially cash flow management. There's lots of questions about taxes, chargebacks as well, emergency planning. You're getting involved in the business with a straight commission. In most cases, you need to think about your money differently because of that. So we're going to talk about that in depth, and thank you for watching. In today's module, we're going to cover one of the most important subjects that new agents like you should absolutely spend time considering, thinking, and planning around, which is your money. It's managing your money as an insurance agent. Here's the thing. A lot of people that actually fail this business, as of now, it's like 90% of the agents that start within their first 12 months largely fail because they just run out of money. They don't have the capability financially to stick in the business. So the purpose of this training is designed for those who are new to the business or thinking about getting into the business that need strong management, financial survival tips. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And I can tell you this, doing this business now for 15 plus years, this is a common thing that happens. The more that you're ahead of the game here on managing your money, the better off you're going to be. So we're going to cover specifically things like the insurance income cycle. Just because you sell something doesn't mean you're going to get paid tomorrow, the next week, and in some cases, not even the next month or two. So we'll cover that a little bit more. Why agents run out of money. There's specific reasons why, and you can avoid them once you know them. How to build a survival budget. How to set up an emergency fund strategy. And also talking about taxes and chargebacks. The government always needs more money. And sometimes your policies are going to cancel, and that's a chargeback. We'll talk more about that momentarily. And where your money really should go as an insurance agent. So here's what new agents think of. They believe, or they're just assume, because they've been W-2 agents or W-2 employees, or they've been recruited into an MLM Kool-Aid drinking scheme where they're just told just the good side, not the bad side. What agents expect a lot of times is just income starts immediately. As soon as you get into a role selling insurance, you're on a straight commission and you make that first sale, you're going to get paid the next day. That is largely not the case. It takes sometimes weeks or months. They also are told this business is easy. It's simple, but it ain't easy. And that the commission is steady and predictable. That is not the case. If you're looking for a guaranteed paycheck, just stop the video now, do something else. Because insurance, being a straight commission profession, has swings based largely on your swing of activity. But there are better months than others, and that can bring in a lot of money, but then sometimes it's famine, not just feast. Every sale pays quickly. You're going to find out that is not the case. Depends on what you're selling, of course. And your bills are covered from day one. No, in fact, I would not get involved in many arenas in this business if you need to pay yesterday's mortgage, like as soon as you get started. This business largely does not facilitate that. And financial stress is minimal. If you have money problems getting into this, I'm not joking or laughing that you do have them. It's just, you're just possibly putting a lot more problems on you if you're not prepared. So here, what is the reality besides these expectations being wrong? First of all, depending on what you sell, you're going to have a delay in your payout. Okay. So it may take up to 30 to 90 days. Again, with final expense, it can take sometimes days to weeks. Sometimes it can take a month, month and a half. It just depends on the product and the carrier you're selling. With Medicare, for example, you may not get a payment on Medicare for months if you're selling during the annual election period, Or with annuities, you might close a deal, send it to suitability and compliance checks, and that may add another month to 2 or 3 months, even if you've got to transfer the money and there's problems that associate with that. So get into this business understanding that it's not like a W-2 position where just because you put in an hour or two of time means you're going to get paid, every 2 weeks. Commissions are inconsistent. That's the truth if you're inconsistent with your activity. There is a direct correlation between activity and what you earn. Again, no guarantees, but generally the man or the woman that puts more time in consistently makes more money than if they didn't. Chargebacks can reverse income. So chargebacks are when policies cancel and you usually owe a portion, sometimes all of the commission back, again, depending on what you're selling. So this is a net commission or net negative commission that a lot of people don't talk about until you experience it and you're like, well, what do I do? Expenses arrive before revenue. So if you're in the business, especially of buying leads, you don't get the work leads and work them and then pay for them later. You have to pay for them up front. So you have to acquire a sunk investment into leads before you realize the potential of a profit. And so if you don't have operating expenses, in many cases, a lot of this business or capability to pay for leads, this business doesn't make sense. It does under certain circumstances, which we'll talk about. And this is really why, and I believe financial pressure is really one of the, if not the most popular reason why agents quit the business. Part of it is they come in under false pretenses, and they're not financially prepared, and they realize that it takes time. It's not immediate. Just because you can get your license fast doesn't mean you can learn the business fast. And a lot of people quit because of that. And it's the agents who survive year one that are the ones who plan for this reality, not the expectation. Again, you, by watching this, are in a much better position to be successful. There's no guarantees, of course, but a lot of people have no clue about any of this stuff that we're talking about because they're just told one thing and then life is completely different. So what does the insurance income cycle actually look like? Well, first of all, you prospect, you book appointments, you hopefully then get sales from the sales presentations that you submit. Now, all of that requires in many models, depending on if you're doing like life insurance, annuities, to front the money to buy leads. Okay. Not in all. We'll talk about that in a moment. But there is a problem there. If you can't comfortably put money into a system for leads and wait to get paid, sometimes a month plus in advance, that's a problem. Then you, of course, have to wait for underwriting approval. That can, with some insurance products like Final Expense, what we sell at my company, Dig Agency, be immediate. And that can shut down a lot of the waiting period. But if you're selling a more traditional product, it can take weeks or months. And then commission is paid typically, again, days after it's approved up to many, many weeks later or months later, depending on what is sold. And then you still have for the next 9 months, if you're advanced commission and the customary amount of 3/4 of your full first year commission, the potential for a chargeback if the client changes their mind. And they do. It's a feature of the business, not a bug. And then you have to repay back what you paid in to a certain extent. Usually you have to pay the whole thing, just part of it. And then over time, you get paid if the product pays renewals, a renewal-based income. And most agents where they fall apart is between 1 and 6. Okay. Again, there's a failure I have seen in the business where agents will start off that have potential that are very good and have the potential to be good, and they don't get past this first 6 steps because of the time delay on getting paid from the activity that they did. They just simply can't wait to pay their bills. And so it's important to understand the reality, not just of the business as a whole, but what products you're going to sell, because some are faster than others, like Final Expense pays very fast, whereas annuities pays very slow. It's months as opposed to days with Final Expense. So having this knowledge and understanding of it dramatically affects your ability to be successful. Again, why agents run out of money, other reasons include no savings buffer. So if you're in a position of financial desperation, this may not be the best business model for you. In some cases, it might be, because sometimes with some people, when there's pressure applied, there's amazing things that happen. But if you're doing a business model, to be more clear, that requires a significant investment in leads, and that is the usual and customary approach to do the business, maybe it's not a good idea to approach that business model with that idea in mind, buying leads, let's say. Maybe you should find another strategy that will work better. Other reasons, bills arrive. Again, the financial pressure mounts if commissions aren't being paid, and then sales are missed. Agents start to get depressed. They start to get desperate. We call this commission breath. And then poor decisions are made. Maybe they cut fresh lead flow. Maybe they buy worser leads, or they start cold calling. And I call it the proverbial circling the bull before they're flushed out of the business, and then they quit. Understand the good news, though, is that this is 100% preventable with thoughtful financial preparation and thinking through the realities of the business, not just getting all the good stuff and the good vibes, but thinking through what is realistic for you as an individual in your set situation, how you should approach the business in order to, I believe, what's most important is to minimize the risk of failure. There's no way anybody can guarantee you're successful, but more important than maximize your commission, I believe, as a new agent, for the vast majority of you, is to get into the business with the minimalist amount of risk so that you lower the risk of all of this bad stuff here happening. So you can build a survival budget. The more money you have in the bank, the better. I was not in that position professionally. I was running out of money. I had debt when I first started. I was very desperate. I had to like pawn my grandpa's gold coin or two that I was gifted as a young person in order to finance my way into the business. So it's not something that you have to have, but it's something you should actively always work for, because in the business of straight commission, there is feast and famine. There is going to be ups and downs. Hopefully it's not completely down, and that's usually rare if you're otherwise consistent. But having a bankroll is significant for your success, okay? So make sure you understand what you need to survive: housing, rent, food, groceries, utilities, health insurance, transportation, phone, minimum debt payments. What do you need as a bare minimum? What's your nut that you've got to cover? Then, of course, the other things that are nice to have. What's the next layer above that? And then what things can you pause or eliminate to shed yourself of excess expenses that are unnecessary, okay? And this is important because, truth be told, getting into this business, it takes longer to learn it, and it's going to therefore take longer to cash out the amount of money that you really would like to have. And I hope that it goes faster. We certainly train agents as best as possible to accelerate the learning curve. But the truth is, sometimes we need to learn lessons a couple different times before we get them, right? We all have an individual process of going through and learning. Important point is the doing this stuff with the budget and how you approach the realities of the business is giving you higher odds of survival. That is critically important in this business. You must be able to survive. So here's how the first year cash flow plan looks if you're buying leads. There are alternatives. We'll talk about it in a minute. The first month is you're on a runway investing in leads, training, and tools. You're not making money. In fact, your investment puts you in the negative. That is completely normal and expected. Number two, month two, you're gaining speed. Your commissions are starting to come in. You're still investing heavily. You have to continue to have people to talk to. Cash flow is tight. In some cases, you may have broken even on your initial investment. You may still be in the red. Depends on the business model, but it's still a tight period of time. Month three, in many product lines, we start seeing people break off or break out, where they start to make money in excess of their investment. They're starting to cash flow or personal income. Their pipeline is building. More sales are coming. They can feel a sense of momentum coming from their efforts. And by month 4 and 6, there should be, with the right amount of adequate activity in the beginning, should be a consistent level of income. An emergency fund of a bankroll is growing, and the business is self-sustaining and scaling. And beyond that, 6+ months, you start to see back-end money start to pay in, especially if you're selling something like life insurance. Referrals start to come in a little bit, and then you're at a much less financial stress standpoint than you were in those first couple of months getting started, okay? And typically, a lot of agents, where I see them quit is in that month 1 to month 2 that have potential. Some people never start. We're not counting them, but they get started, get scared from the investment requirement. They start to have doubts, and they don't buy their way through it if the main investment is leads. In many cases, it is, okay? Now, here's the thing. I've been teasing this a little bit. There is an alternate way than just to buy leads. You don't have to buy leads to be successful as an insurance agent. There are insurance agency models where you don't have to invest your money into leads, okay? And what I've seen since I started in the business 15 years ago in 2011 is that the lead investment is the biggest hang up for agents getting started. They see an investment requirement of $3,000 to $10,000 and they just feel nauseous. They're like, I don't have that. And even if I did, I don't know if I want to potentially blow all that money and not get anything back for it. And so the solution that I've come up with is by offering a free lead program. So a little bit of a shameless plug here because it's relevant, because this is the biggest objection that I've seen is instead of relying on your own personal store of income or savings or borrowing money to buy leads, then why don't you just join a company that'll provide them for you? Now, in exchange, your commission is lower, but your overall risk is substantially less. And the reason this is a great idea for many people out there is that it allows you to learn the business on a much lower risk basis so that all of these problems we talked about just don't exist. So, for example, instead of dropping 5 or 10 grand, yeah, you may have a lesser commission, but you can learn how to sell. You can tweak your system. You can improve your processes. And then maybe 3 or 6 months later, you can get into the lead buying game, accelerate your commissions upward to make more per sale, but you've reduced the risk of that because you've learned everything up to that point. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying? So I believe this is how 90% or more of you should do this. Some of you are just hardcore entrepreneurs and maybe isn't a good fit. But for a lot of you out there getting started in this business, or rather take the lower risk route, this is a perfect strategy. Whether it's my company or another company, this is the kind of process that is just, it works for a ton of people. And I mean, we don't want to talk about you failing, but if you did, it's much better to lose a little bit of money than 10 times that little bit of money, right? And I've seen horror stories of people losing 5 figures in the business because they just weren't prepared for what was the reality of the business. So think about it that way. Joining a free lead a program can reduce your monthly business expenses by up to 90%. There's no thing that'll reduce them all, but you can get a lot of them reduced. The single decision changes your financial runway and gives you the breathing room to build the confidence that you need to close more sales and stay in the game. So consider Dig Agency, my company, or a free lead program if buying leads worry you. Okay. Now back to that emergency fund. Again, besides what says on the slide here, to the highest extent possible, build up a bankroll. There's something that comes psychologically from having 5 figures, a significant 5-figure amount in the bank account. And even if you have a bad week where you don't make money, maybe even lose money, you're not really that concerned. And what that does, actually, it makes you a better agent because you're not desperate to make a sale. So how do you do that? Well, you got to just start somewhere. So as you start to make sales, as you start to cover your expenses, and you have excess money left over, try to put as much of that aside into your savings. Okay, put more into it over and over because you will have a bad week, even a bad month, and if your emergency fund is large enough, it doesn't matter that much. You feel fine. You're not going to let it affect you. You're just going to run your system, and eventually you'll work your way out of the doldrums, as all agents get into from time to time. Okay, so big deal, especially if you're a straight commission, is to save your money and put yourself in voluntary poverty in order to have a bankroll. So if you don't have enough money or you're worried about that even getting started, this is another reason why you should look at starting this profession from a part-time basis, okay? So again, shameless plug, and I'm doing a lot of it, but it's relevant. Our company, Dig Agency, does recruit people on a part-time basis, completely fine with doing that. And this is a fantastic strategy in order to get started without the huge risk or the emergency fund may be necessary to go full-time. Okay. So I actually did this when I started. I had a personal training gym. I was making some money with little savings. And then I got started selling final expense. And I did it for 6 months to test out the waters and to not have this kind of potential failure risk over my head. So that way, if it worked, I can make the transition confidently. And after 6 months, I did to full time. So I love part-time because of that. And if you're thinking about doing this business, but you're not sure how to do it, consider starting part-time. Get started part-time, do it 3, 6, 9 months, whatever it takes, so you can learn the business, reduce your risk, and then go full-time when you've saved money from your sales and you've learned the majority of what you need to know. Also, in good combination with that, of course, is a free lead program, like mentioned. So that reduces even more of the expenses, not just the emergency fund and savings that are necessary with bad times. And it allows you, again, to learn without consequences and transition when you are ready. So the high risk path is just to blow a bunch of money you don't have, take huge risks, listen to the Kool-Aid dispensers at the MLM pyramid schemes, and then fail out like most agents. Whereas the smarter path is to judiciously consider your specific situation, consider alternatives that reduce risk. Not that you can't eliminate risk, but you can manage risk. And that's what a smart person does in order to learn the business, level out the bad months, and then when you're ready to go full time and all in, you're in a much better position to do so. Okay. So understand chargebacks here, very important concept. So understand every time you make a sale, your advanced commission, the policy is collateral, the advance is what we call a loan. Okay. And if that policy lapses, because they're paying monthly with the expectation of future premiums to come in to cover the advance commission, then you owe back usually a prorated portion of the advance. So if Mildred drops her final expense plan after 3 payments, you got advanced 9 months worth of commission. You now owe back 6 months and you've earned the 3 months. That's typically the case. So what happens is that this is something that happens to all agents. And the more that you write, more of your business is going to lapse. The percentage usually is the same if you're consistent, but chargebacks happen. They don't happen to people that they're not like an indication of being a bad agent. They're an indication of being an agent. Okay. So people change their minds. And so the idea is this is why we don't spend all of our commission dollars. This is a common failure point with new agents. They get a bunch of money, blow it on a new car that they shouldn't be buying. They should be driving their jalopy for a while until they do an accumulated emergency fund. And then a bunch of chargebacks happen. They can't pay and they go broke and they're in debt and they fail out of the business. Okay. So chargebacks are real. And the way that you account for it is you sell the right way. Don't pressure people into buying. You sell the right products. Be a broker is my recommendation. Shop around to find the best combination of price and coverage. And last but not least, make sure that you do a good job selling insurance to your client and consistently and actively sell. Always be selling, knowing that some of them aren't going to go through, and you'll be fine. Taxes as a 1099 agent. This is something that absolutely you need to be aware of. As an employee, you're taxed differently as what is known as a 1099 agent. Now, if you're going to work at State Farm or Allstate, probably an employee, so all of the employee things on the left apply. But if you're any other kind of agent and you sign a contract as an independent contractor, that's what 1099 agent means. Okay. So as an employee, taxes get pulled out of your check automatically. You don't have to think about it. You get a W-2 at the end of the year. Your employer pays half the Social Security Medicare payment, and there's rarely tax surprises, and that's that. Whereas if you're a 1099 agent, you're responsible for paying taxes. You actually owe both sides and up to 15.3% on self-employment tax. Then if there's any federal or state income taxes, you have to pay, which you would anyway as a W-2 agent. And then the IRS does expect you to pay quarterly estimated payments to Uncle Sugar, Uncle Sam. And if you don't do this, you get a big old tax bill at the end of the year that says, hey, you owe a bunch of money. And this is actually an endpoint for some agents that are otherwise, every other way, very good. They don't plan to pay Uncle Sugar accordingly to what he wants. He wants your money on time or you get penalized. So it's best ultimately over the medium and long term for sure to plan on estimated quarterly payments to satisfy Uncle Sam and to make sure that you stay out of tax issues. Okay. So one strategy is to set up, separate accounts where every dollar that hits your main account, 25 to 30% gets sent over to a dedicated tax savings account, or you just manually move it over. Again, being successful, ladies and gentlemen, requires a level of discipline that you probably don't have to have as an employee, like managing your own taxes. Okay. So just part of the game, because the upside is so great and the lifestyle benefits that you get from it are amazing as well, but there's more responsibilities for sure. Also, lifestyle inflation, hinted at this earlier. This also kills a lot of people. So this is the problem with y'all people on Instagram and to some extent YouTube and Facebook and TikTok, watching all these people and their lifestyle and their Lambos and Rolexes and overpriced everything. A lot of it's BS, number one. And number two, what you don't see is the expenses that causes them to, suffer financially. So look, I want you to be rich. I do. You should want to be rich in this business. It's a great thing to be rich in this business. But in the beginning, you don't need to get too far ahead of yourself. You need to be dedicated to learning the business and learning the skills that will help you pay for these Lambo bills. Okay. So you don't want to let the lifestyle inflation trap you where you now start stacking on more and more expenses prematurely and not be able to bust out of that. I'll give you a personal example for me. I drove beat up cars for probably 12 years of the 15 years of my career. And I didn't upgrade to my dream car until I had substantial income. And it's paid off now. And it's because I hate debt and I know it just drains you as a business professional, especially unnecessary debt. So I say all this because this is a different business and you got to think about this stuff and reduce debt, maximize cash flow. Cash makes you happy. So a couple of things. How does the lifestyle inflation trap happen? Big commission check arrives. You feel immediately rich, privileged, and you should treat yourself to the nice things like upgrading your car, luxury spending, and then your expenses catch up. Then you have a crap month and now have created through your own decisions of being, silly with your money, a financial crisis. And now you're back into this spiral out of desperation selling, either getting trapped on a hamster wheel or worse yet, failing out of the business when you should have just been prudent. So here's what the smart agent does. Let me tell you, as somebody who's been there and done that, what to do instead. First of all, make sure you set aside money for taxes. Some portion doesn't have to be 25 to 30%, depends on the state, but put aside something. Aggressively build your emergency fund. You need to be thinking longevity in this business. This is a 5 to 10 year process. Okay. Set aside money to build a fund. Really take investing the proceeds afterwards back into yourself. One way to make more money in this business, guys, is to buy more leads or to buy courses and training to get better. Invest in yourself. It's the best way to increase your income fastest. Okay. Live on a survival budget. Okay. Just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you need to live the entrepreneurial Instagram dream. Give yourself some time. It's going to take more money and time than you think. And if you start upgrading your lifestyle too soon, you end up in what we described. And lifestyle upgrades come after stability. And everybody's a little bit different what their income goals are and what kind of risk they're handling in their business. But being and living on low expenses is just, it's like a burden lifted off of your shoulders. Your life becomes so much easier. You actually have a sense of wealth that money can't buy because it doesn't, you're fine. You handle it. You're cool. You have financial freedom, which is the best kind of freedom to have. So don't worry about looking successful. Happily drive your beat up car, live below your means, be successful. That is your true goal. And it's from that success scaled up over time that the lifestyle upgrades come as a reward for the financial discipline that you imposed. Okay. Don't let the temptation and seeing others tempt you to do the dumb things that you see on Instagram. Okay. So this is where I would suggest you got to make your mind up how to place your money where it should go. I'm big on emergency funds, reinvesting back into your business. When you're buying leads, to invest in leads is huge. And personal investing on some level as well. But not into crap you don't need. Save the dumb purchases for later. So investing in your businesses first. Okay. So invest in the right agency. You're going to get skills training, sales training, etc. Consider courses to help upgrade you too as well. Leads are the best way to increase your income. Get better at the business. If you're buying leads, guess what? You know what you can sell buying 50 leads, you can sell at 200 leads in many cases. Okay. Don't be afraid once you have the success. And if you don't want to go from 50 to 200, go to 50 to 100, 100 to 250. Slowly scale. That's what I found out early on is that it was easier for me to make more money by running 40 appointments a week than trying to figure out how to close a higher percentage of the 20 appointments a week on less leads and less appointments. So there was a essentially diminishing returns on my ability to make sales. So I just did more sales and more presentations because of the presentations that I booked. Does that make sense? So this is really good tactical thinking as you start to get better at the business. Also invest in tools, tech. There are some productivity tools that make a huge difference, especially dialers if you're working from home. CRMs can be very helpful as well. Make sure you stay compliant and licensed. Invest, especially in the agency that you're going with, as far as mentorship and coaching can make all the difference. And then, especially do some level of marketing and branding. I'm a big advocate of doing seminar marketing. I'm a big advocate of doing social media, organic marketing in order to get your name out there to generate leads at no cost, which is very, very good. And be careful of debt. I mentioned this earlier. You want to be in a position, if you're not already debt free, to work towards being debt free. It's just psychologically the best place to be in. I want you to think about yourself as an insurance professional, a highly productive insurance professional, like a athlete. An athlete has to be in a perfect psychological state to execute in many cases. They can't have a bunch of drama going on. Look at Tiger Woods, for those of you old enough to remember what happened with him. It's a perfect example. And for many of us, debt causes huge problems psychologically, which affect our ability to do well. So, for example, where I see investment being a good idea, not necessarily debt, is in all the things we've already mentioned. And of course, the bad idea is to take out a credit card because you have income now and you can handle it and start buying shit you don't need. Okay, excuse me, but it's true. I beat this into your head because it is so different than being an employee. You got to live below your means. And the agents who make it don't have more talent, better leads, or get lucky. It's because they plan their finances before they needed to. That's the huge takeaway with all of this today, guys. Okay. So in our next module, we're going to talk about directly compensation, how commission works in the insurance business. We're talking about things like commission structures, overrides and renewals, chargebacks in more details, how to earn passive income. It's going to be a great training. We'll see you there. So if you've ever wondered how exactly you're going to get paid and on what terms, and this training is for you. My name is David Duford. I own Dig Agency, and today we're doing and continuing our new agent orientation masterclass, specifically today, talking about compensation and understanding it, learning how insurance agents get paid, and how to build long-term wealth in the insurance business as a successful producer. Topics today we're going to talk about include: where do commissions come from? Why commission percentages matter? Street level, what that means versus overrides, how renewals create long-term income, why chargebacks happen, and how to think like a business owner. My hope for you today on the takeaways here is that you better understand compensation and have clarity around what matters as far as earning power goes, and can have a better idea to estimate what the possibility of income is for your particular strategy you're looking at. So understand that most agents assume getting started, they just sell a policy, they're done. But the reality is insurance is one of those few careers where income keeps growing long after the original sale, depending on what you're selling. So for example, with Medicare, the beauty of selling Medicare or health insurance is it's a residual income-based product. If you can keep the client on longer than the first year, you continually get paid the same amount for the lifetime that the client's with you. That's great. That's passive income. Even with life insurance products, many of them pay what we call a renewal beyond the first year. It's a small amount, but if you sell hundreds of policies, it adds up, and it's a nice little mailbox money check that you get to help support your lifestyle. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, of course, money does not come directly from the clients. It comes from the insurance carriers and the agencies that recruit you, but ultimately the carriers. They dispense of the commission after the policy is approved. It usually disseminates to the agency or directly to the agent, depending on your setup. And then you get paid money, and then the agency gets what's called an override, which is the commission above and beyond what you get paid. That commission does not come out of your paycheck, by the way. It's completely separate and payable and different. And that's why agencies do what they do, because they're attempting to make an income off of the production from the agents associated with them. So sometimes you'll hear the term street commission lobbed around. This is essentially the commission paid directly to the writing agent, where there's no support or little support added, and you're kind of on your own. Now, you'll see this in different forms. 120% usually refers to life insurance products. But the important point of understanding commission is you will have people that will offer you these high commissions, but understand selling insurance successfully is more than just how much you make per sale. Well, where are you going to get your sales? Who's going to teach you how to stop making the dumb mistakes selling insurance that you're making or prevent you from making dumb mistakes? Who's going to coach you, mentor you, encourage you to step up and do the best that you can? If you think about all that stuff, that is more valuable in many cases than just a specific number. There's an old saying in this business, 120% of zero is still zero. So it may be a better idea to get a smaller contract in exchange for training, support, leads paid for, the opportunity for growth, and more. So keep that in mind as you look at compensation, not just to look at it on the dollar amount or the percentage amount, but what the package is. So the income formula looks like this. It's your sales times average premium times commission rate. So if you have 100 sales, your average premium is 1,000 AP, then you have a $100,000 amount of revenue that's been paid. And if your commission rate's 100%, you're making 100,000 in commissions before deducting out expenses. Okay. And now that's a huge what if, the expenses part, because you can make that much money, then have 110,000 in expenses because you didn't have support training. You actually lost money. And it happens more often than, unfortunately, we would like to see. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about base commission versus override. So again, the writing agent typically earns a base commission when they make the sale by directly servicing and closing the clients. The agency makes owns their override for what it is they did, like we talked about last time, and they don't reduce your commissions. So the nice thing that's cool about insurance is it's one of the few business models that creates, I would say, passive implies that you don't have to do anything. That is the case to some extent in some models, but I would say it creates more of what I'll call residual income. So residual income is offset income later on that didn't occur at the time of sale. Okay. So it's recurring revenue. That's a recurring revenue model. And the timeline looks something like this. It could. You make first year commission only your first year, there's no residual. But as you get into year 2, 3, 4, 5, you start significantly building a residual income based off of all of those sales still with you from year 1 and beyond. And where this is beautiful, guys, is that you can get a check for $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 if you're a hardcore producer. And it's not off of any actual direct sales that you made that month and even that year in some cases. This is a very real thing that agents experience. And how freeing that is incredible. You can go travel, know you're going to get paid. You don't have to be a slave to your business when you have a residual earning income. So what I suggest agents to think about, not necessarily in the short term, but in the medium term, especially after you build your business model, you build your skill set. And let's say you started in a free lead program like mine. You move to a broker model that provides residual income. And you move into a model where you can build at least a portion, some, all, depends on what your goals are, where 5, 10 years in, you're going to get a consistent check regardless of whether or not you work. It really makes a huge difference in your psychological state. And I think just your enjoyment and love of life. Of course, chargebacks are the net reductions in commissions. They happen when a policy lapses or it's replaced or it's canceled or the client just doesn't pay premiums. It's a normal part of the business. Successful agents minimize them. Some products charge back more often than others. Final expense probably has a higher chargeback rate than, say, annuities. But even annuities have chargebacks. So you factor them into, you bake them into the cake of the business. And any honest agency owner will tell you about chargebacks and how to manage them, how to minimize them. There's strategies along the way for all of this. And they certainly won't hide the fact that they exist. So bottom line, what we're trying to do here long-term for you is to teach you that if you want to maximize your compensation, you have to build a book of business. And one of the things even we do in my company, Dig Agency, we're not just selling them final expense. We're selling them another final expense plan. We're talking to them later in the year to sell them a Medicare plan. We're cross-selling different products so that my clients, my book of business, my company's book of business is not just, I'm not fulfilling one problem, I'm fulfilling multiple, thus creating multiple streams of income. And the more streams of income that you have, the safer and more preserved your overall income stream and cash flow really is. If you have a bad month selling life insurance, but you built a Medicare book of business, there's a consistent cash flow with that. So the point is that, again, this is something I wouldn't get into. And this is a big mistake a lot of you new agents think. It's like, wow, I want to build residual right now. Wow, I want to do it all. I want to do everything. Well, you can't. It's too overwhelming. There's too many moving parts. And the person who tries to be everything to everybody is nothing to nobody. The better strategy is to focus and to specialize, not to generalize. In other words, pick a product, go all into it, and then once you master that and can do it with your eyes blindfolded, then pick up a second product that is very close in relation to it. Perfect strategy that we teach is start with final expense, pick up Medicare later, because all your clients with final expense have Medicare, and it's a much easier product to bring on. So last but not least, you want to think like a business owner, again, and think really long-term. That's really what I want you to think. A lot of you are going to be better off starting in a free lead program like mine at Dig Agency, but I don't want you there forever. I want you to get into the role when it's appropriate for you to be a full commission broker buying his or her own leads. And what that provides you is the opportunity to do everything that we've talked about, to maximize your total compensation, not just up front, but over time. But in the beginnings, it's very commonly a good trade-off to get the training and support and mentorship to develop the foundational skills first before worrying about maximizing this, okay? So the longer term you can think about this business, the better off you're ultimately going to be, and it's going to be a much more satisfying business strategy. So biggest compensation mistakes agents make include just thinking about highest commission, not what you want to do, especially as a brand new agent. Think about the total package, mentorship, training, access to leads. Skipping training to sell faster. Don't skip out on training. Don't just feel like I'm going to get on the phone and crush it or get out there. That's good, but you need to have the rudimentary skills to sell, to submit an application, and to get the job done. And then you'll, as you do it and apply, you certainly will learn more. Focusing only on first year commission. Again, kind of a tangential to the first point. First year commission matters, but everything else associated with the sale, including the foundational skill base you develop, matters more, especially in the beginning. Not understanding how chargebacks works, big mistake. This can take you out of the business if you're not aware of it, but now you are. And quitting before renewals accumulate. Again, the big goal in the first year, maybe 2 years, is just to survive. And then years 2 through 5 really is where you start to thrive, is what I've seen. And the ones who fail are the ones who usually it's not because they can't sell. It's just because they didn't understand the business that they were in and they didn't understand the realities of it. Okay. And great agents focus on better conversations, better underwriting, better persistency, better customer service, and more consistent production, and executing consistently week over week, month over month, and year over year. Okay. So that's the summary here. Compensation comes from insurance companies. Street level is something that you'll be presented with. The opportunity to get the highest commission ever. Don't fall for that trap. Make sure you make a measured decision based off of the value added when it comes to systems around leads, training, and support. Overrides are what your agency earns for your production. One saying that I would say to you is make sure your agency earns their overrides. They don't have a right to it, but make sure that their system provides and earns it, because as soon as it doesn't, you don't need to be a part of them. Don't forget renewals, no matter where you start in your business, whether it's with my company or another. Renewals are very important, and you should focus on them at least medium term if you can't necessarily start as a broker from the beginning or start with Medicare and absorb the financial impact and the lower cash flow that has. Understand chargebacks are a feature, not a bug of the business. They happen. Plan for them appropriately. And long-term, build a book of business, not just make a bunch of sales, okay? So on the next module, we're going to be talking about building your pipeline and going more into the sales process in a general sense, just to give you an idea of how do you actually sell this stuff? What's customary and appropriate on a sales presentation call? So we're going to go into the details of that. So at the conclusion of that, you'll know what to expect from a sales standpoint, how to overcome the basic objections all insurance agents meet, and then close people who may not even from the beginning wanted it, but now do because you're now an effective salesperson. In today's new agent orientation masterclass training, we're specifically going to be talking about the insurance sales process. So regardless of what insurance product you're thinking about selling or going to sell, Sales is absolutely part of the equation. You have to persuade strangers to hand their money to you in exchange for an insurance policy you sold them. And that doesn't happen automatically. It's a skill set that is both an art and a science. And my job here today is to train you on what to expect from a broad 1,000-foot overview perspective. So at the conclusion of this, my goal is to have you have a basic understanding of how to sell successfully, what the process will look like for the vast majority of situations, and then put you just in a position to have a roadmap becoming a top producing sales agent. Okay. So also we'll learn things like how to work leads smarter, why speed and persistence wins, the importance imperative of speed, how to build trust with the prospect who may not know you from Adam, how to present and close with confidence, and know it's not about slick talking and being, a used car salesman. No offense if you are or have been. Sales is the same but different when it comes to insurance. We'll talk about how that works. We'll talk about mastering the back office, which is very important in completing the sales, because just because they're signed their name to the contract doesn't mean they're going to follow through, or that you won't have adversity you have to overcome. We'll talk more about that. And then conclude by thinking in the totality of the life of the client. The first sale is not the last. There's many sales opportunities for the discerning and wise insurance agent. We're going to teach you to be that way, okay? So let us begin. Lesson 1 is knowing your leads. Here's the thing. A lead is somebody who expresses by raising their hand, proverbially, that they're interested in your product. Now, that interest can be a 1 on a scale of 10 or a 10 on a scale of 10 out of 10, okay? The point being is that a lead is not a sale. A lead is an opportunity to make a sale, and what moves that opportunity to a sale largely depends on you, how well you work the lead, how many times you attempt to call that lead, how well you overcome objections, how well you connect. Okay, there's a lot of human variability to it, and that's why learning how to sell successfully is vital. So understand, first of all, fresh leads are the best ones to work. Okay. So people who have just requested information, you want to drop everything to get to those as fast as humanly possible. Because at the culmination of requesting information, they know they're going to get phone calls, text messages, asked to buy something. So their interest by default has to be at the highest level. And it waxes and wanes if you don't follow up. So with fresh leads, there is a speed to lead imperative. Contact the lead as quickly as possible. 5 minutes or less is preferred. And this is where I believe you'll find the best return on investment when you work them fast. Also, we have age leads, which are also very good. There's lower intent because time has passed. Their interest isn't really there. You can buy a lot of them as a brand new agent, but you're going to have to work through a bunch more to find the handful of sales left. And the golden ticket is referral sales. This is something you should absolutely work at building as a new agent. Referrals simply are people who were referred to you by happy clients that bought from you in the past. Now, you can let this happen automatically, organically. You can learn how to elicit for referrals naturally and directly. That's my recommendation. But what you want to do is work more and more a percentage of your total sales volume by referral. It's the funnest way to sell with the least amount of financial risk and the most profitability too. It's the best way to approach. And while a new agent will probably start using all 3 of these, with most on the left side of the screen, the goal longer term is to get more on the right side of the screen. Now, contacting prospects, just because somebody buys or fills a lead form out expressing interest in buying, doesn't mean that they're going to call you now. You got to call them, okay? Now, you can sometimes send them into an inbound cycle where they call you, where you elicit a phone call from them, or maybe they're calling off of a TV commercial. There's a variety of different leads out there. But understand that in many cases, because you're the salesperson, your responsibility is to, as quickly as possible, get those people on the phone and to present to them. So some tips here: call immediately within 5 minutes. Consider leaving a voicemail that entices curiosity to call them back. Test it out. Sometimes voicemail works, sometimes it doesn't. Always implement a text message strategy to follow up with every new lead that comes in, to elicit a conversation, to qualify them, and to encourage them to get on the phone and talk to you. There are many people who will never, ever, even if it's the Pope, pick up the phone, but they absolutely will answer a text message of text. So you have to do both to be successful in modern day insurance sales. But don't just call one time. You got to call these people dozens, sometimes hundreds of times. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, that's abuse. That's a lot of calls. Well, if they pick up the phone or answer my text message, I wouldn't call. Okay. So the point is that you need to exact the highest amount of attempts to call that you can. Because in doing that is how you're going to find sales. Because in many cases, the first why you speed the lead is imperative. There may be times when you can't speed the lead because you're on the phone or you're just not at the desk and you miss them and they don't pick up. And repetitiousness and calling is the only way to get the sale that's there. So follow-up is going to vary. You may follow up a couple times a day. You may eventually follow up a couple times a week, then every other week, depending on how many times previously you called. And understand sometimes the sales that you won't make up front, you will make on the back end. So you do want to have a long-term strategy, always going back to the age leads, okay? So our numbers aren't exactly a big agency like this, but I can tell you we need more than 25 calls to get the majority of our sales, okay? So the point is you can't just quit at even 10, which seems like a lot. And we also know that the faster we get somebody on the phone, the more likely we are to sell them, okay? So the fortune is in the follow-up, as they say. So in some cases, you may set an appointment and attempt to see them in person or call them at a later point. Now, if you're remote-based agents like us selling a simple product, the moment they pick up the phone, you're closing them, you're selling them, okay? You don't call back later. In some cases, you can have your social media embed a calendar if you're buying leads to pre-book appointment and then call them at a later time. But if you're doing remote work, it's usually they pick up and you're selling them. You're not doing an appointment, okay? Because it's an act of God. They actually picked up the phone anyway. Now, if you're face-to-face, you may be setting an appointment, okay? So if you're selling final expense, Medicare, selling into businesses, this little strategy works very well. So let's talk about it. So you call the person, they pick up the phone. It's the person responsible for who you want to sell. And you say, hey, Mildred, my name is David. I'm following up on the information you requested about our life insurance. I work with families in Hickson, Tennessee to make sure they have the right coverage in place. I have a few questions to see if I can help. It only takes 20 minutes. I have tomorrow, Tuesday at 2 available, or is Wednesday at 4 available? Which works better for you? So the reason this works is that, first of all, I don't say, do you have time to talk? Or I just wanted to call, or are you still interested? The answer to any question like that is a no. What you want to do is presume that you're going to get it booked. Notice at the offer the 2 times, I don't ask them, do you want me to come over? I say, which one of these do you want to say yes to? Do you want to say yes to the Tuesday or the Wednesday appointment? By taking away the option for no and only presenting yes, I increase my odds of getting it booked. Nothing's foolproof, but I don't want to give them the option to say no. So I always say I have 2 times available. Always minimize the length. That's the biggest objection. I got to get in a sales appointment. I got to see a salesperson. It just takes 5 minutes to go over the information, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever is comfortable for you. Say it. Really sell that. It's no big deal. What you do with the information is up to you. I say that a lot. That's huge. This is something I can help you with. Make it no big deal. And the other thing with setting the appointment is tonality. My advice to you is to take a matter of fact, I'm just doing my job, Mildred, type of tone. Don't call like the Orange Glow or ShamWow guy and be super excited. That can work too for some, but most people do better just being like, hey, Mildred, this is David. I'm following up on the information you requested about your life insurance. Do you see how I sound? Just kind of matter of fact, just like I'm just doing my job. Nothing really disturbs me. Next on the list here is pre-appointment checklist. So this is just things to make sure that you bring with you. Again, if this is necessary and you're seeing somebody in person, make sure that you have access to any information they provided on lead form. Please make sure you have access to your rate calculator. Bring your laptop, guys. Don't forget the important stuff. Everything you need to do to make a phone call. If you're selling in person, bring a mobile hotspot. If you're out in the boonies and you don't have internet connection, the moment you forget that is when the biggest sale of your life is going to happen. And make sure you dress well too. Now, as far as if you're doing this remotely from home, again, have your desktop prepared. Make sure all your important links are saved in a bookmark. Have multiple screens, like I'm looking at 2 right here, because I can have my application, my script, and my dialer open, and I don't have to click back and forth and then overwhelm myself. So your mindset checklist here, a couple of things really important to remember. I'm here to help, not here to sell. You're just here to help them out, okay? You are going to learn to shut up and understand that sales is not about you talking, it's about the other person talking, your prospect. Get them to talk so you listen more. I will ask questions before presenting. Again, take a Socratic approach. Be curious. Why do you need peace of mind? Why is this important that you get this? Let them tell you what they need to be sold on. It's amazing. If you just let them talk and you ask them good questions, they'll tell you all the reasons to sell and ways to sell them. Don't quote until you understand their needs. So in many cases, just hold off on pitching price until you've done the script as it needs to be. And then expect that you're going to make a sale today, especially if you're putting in an honest amount of work. All right. Not like a couple hours, but a full day's worth. Now, another thing that's very important is commonly with agents and new people to sales is how do you get people to trust you? I mean, it's crazy, right? Like you're calling people on the phone. They've been told for years not to pick up the phone, that some scammer in India or Pakistan is going to get them. Or you show up at their house and a stranger, and they're not supposed to let anybody in. And you're somehow, as a newbie to this, thinking like, how can I make money when nobody does this, presumably? Well, here's reality. The vast majority of people are nice. They read you. They get an intuition about you. Okay? That's why it's so important to present yourself appropriately. And if you're in person, how you dress, eye contact, body language, shaking hands. And then if you're talking on the phone, tonality is really important, being warm, connecting well. Because that's basically the threat perception that people have. They're going to use that as a judgment. Whether it's fair or not is not the point, but that's just reality. So the point is most people, if you don't come off as being weird on the phone or in person, they'll listen to you. Okay, not everybody, but a lot of them will, more than you think. So this stuff actually works, and this is the beginnings of what's called building rapport. Rapport simply means getting people to like you, okay? And the skill set to doing this is really simple. It's not running your mouth. It's shutting up and listening to the client and what they have to say. A lot of people think sales is about you talking. It's not. It's about getting your clients to talk. And try to use the 80-20 rule. For every word that you say, they say 5 words. So for every 10 seconds you talk, they talk for a minute. And this has worked extremely well in my career. I'm just a good salesperson. I'm not the greatest. I'm not bad. But most of my game plan was built around having a sense of curiosity about the people I was talking to and what their problems were so I could figure out a way I could help them. And the only way to do that is just shut up and just listen. Okay. So listen 80% of the time, talk 20% of the time. And what you're going to find is that's the way to get results. So a couple of tips to do this. First of all, use their name. Don't do it too much. If I say Mildred every 10 seconds, it's going to sound fake. But if I say Mildred at key moments, like in the beginning, the middle, when I'm really emphasizing a point, and at the close, overcoming objections, it makes a huge impact. Mirror and match their tone and energy level. Okay. So there will be times I've sat down with clients and they just are chill. They're laid back. They're not stressed. And so I mimic that. I get comfortable. I lower my voice a little bit. And I find that if I'm screaming at them and they're talking like this and I'm screaming at them, they just don't feel right about me. Whereas if I mirror and match who they are, not again, fakely, you can do this fake and over the top too. But if I have a similarity to their disposition, we just seem to connect well better. We mesh well better. Ask personal questions, get to know them. Don't be afraid of opening with rapport or talking like the typical questions. What we do at my company is teach agents to not open with rapport, but to ask it in the health questions section. Because by then we've gotten through the initial objections. People are a little more skeptical nowadays. And now it's turned into a conversation where we're helping them and they're more likely to give us information personally and being willing to talk. Make sure you find common ground. So look for shared values, interests, or experiences. Always make sure that you exploit that. If you were in the military and they were, make sure to mention that. But don't go over the top and talk 20 minutes about something esoteric. Mention it, make the connection, and then get back to the script. Okay. And be genuinely curious, like I said earlier. Lesson 6 here is conducting a needs analysis. So when you sit down with the client, there's a problem they have. That's why they requested the information to begin with. And your job is to ask questions to figure out what the problem is and to figure out what their needs are. Every product you're going to sell is going to be different in what questions you're going to ask. So for example, final expense, We asked them what were their thoughts and concerns when they requested this information. God forbid if they die, what happens if they don't have life insurance? Who's going to get affected? Um, who do you want which loved one do you want to have this policy when you die, and why? So these are all questions that we're collecting and gathering a picture of what their need is and what the pain is associated with it. Okay. So these are things that you can ask. Again, it's specific to what it is you're selling. I wouldn't ask some of these. What keeps you up at night financially? Who would you most be affected if you weren't here? So getting them into the picture, the emotional state of if they die and their spouse lives, how are they going to survive, right? And that helps sell the need for income replacement insurance. Have you thought about what would happen to your mortgage? Again, going that route. And what you're listening for in these questions is income amount, stability, number of dependents, like who's affected by your death, existing coverage plans. You want to play the game with their cards face up. So you want to know if they have existing coverage, why they bought it, why it's important to them. And then really look for the emotional triggers. That's the big thing. In selling life insurance, specifically final expense, we hear commonly, I don't want to be a burden to my loved ones. I just want to have peace of mind. Those are the two phrases, not burdening loved ones and peace of mind, that drive the sale of almost every final expense plan. I'm looking for them to tell me that, because if they have neither of those, they're not going to buy it. They just don't care enough, right? So the needs analysis is an interrogation. It's a conversation. Again, ask questions, listen, be interested, be curious, take notes, and keep going. And then once you've developed the analysis, you've got a good picture of where they're at, what their problems are, what their fears are. It's now time to present the solution. Many ways to do this. The ways that we recommend is to, first of all, present one solution. Tell them based on what I've heard here, here's what my recommendation would be. Here's a life insurance plan. It takes care of final expenses. Without this coverage, you know as well as I do, when you die, somebody somewhere is going to have to pay this, and they can't do it. And they're going to be burdened and not have peace of mind. So I'm introducing back the pain by doing this. I'm telling them the solution is simple. It's easy to apply for. I've already asked about their budget. Highly recommend you do and qualify their budget early on as well. And then recommend it to them. This is my professional recommendation. And what this does is it allows you to become a welcomed guest instead of a unwelcome pest like you were in the beginning. Okay. And make sure you use their words. If they used, I need peace of mind, tell them this gives you peace of mind. Everybody kind of speaks a different language. We all speak English in America, but our forms of English are developed based off of our personal experience, or the regions where we live, our familial backgrounds, and our personal experiences. And so when somebody says something, they're using words in their own personal vocabulary that has meaning. And so instead of using words that have a dictionary-based meaning, I'm going to use words that have a personal meaning as defined by the person I'm sitting with, presenting to. So I want to speak their language in presenting the product, because it's just going to make more sense to them. They won't be able to tell, but because I'm speaking their language, they're going to appreciate, yes, he understands what it is that I want, and the solution makes sense and increases your chance of buying. So the best presentation, really, guys, it's a short one. You should be able to sell a simple product like life insurance in 15 minutes or less, okay, over the phone. In person, maybe 15 to 25 minutes. It kind of depends. If it's a spouse alongside, it's going to increase it. But there's not a lot of work that you have to do. I've seen crazy presentations that are 45, 50 minutes long, and they just wear people out to buy. You don't have to do that. You just learn about them, see what they want to accomplish, present your option, and then ask which one they want to start with. It's really simple. Now, you will get objections. Now, objections are pushback from people who aren't committed to necessarily buying yet. And the reason that they do that is because they're confused, they're afraid, but they're not necessarily not interested. So when you hear an objection, understand, first of all, don't be mad, get glad. That means they're interested. Many times objections come before the commitment, and they just need to have more solidarity with you and belief and commitment of belief before they make that buying decision committedly. And so we're going to give you a couple of examples here of how to handle framework. So I use the ABC methodology, answer the objection, ASC, ask, answer the objection, sell why it's still okay, and then close. So if they say, yeah, I need to talk to my daughter about this, I just don't know if this is good for me, I'll say, okay, I'll just listen to them. And I'm saying, yeah, I get it. I understand. So basically, and then I reframe it and I say something like, so what I'm hearing here is you like what you're seeing, but you feel it's important to talk to your daughter first. Is that correct? Perfect. I completely understand that. A lot of people feel the same way that you do. Certainly not the first person to say that. But here's the deal. Can I be honest with you? So this is the answer. This is selling them. Answer here, the selling part of my ask methodology. And then I sell them like, hey, look, you said from the beginning this is important for you. You need to have peace of mind. This is vitally important. Your daughter's going to be up the creek without a paddle with this, right? We both agree on this. So here's my proposition. Let's go ahead and get you approved. Let's go ahead and start with the cheapest plan. And then if that doesn't work, you have all the time in the world to choose another one. And if you do, you call me up. We'll just upgrade it to the higher one. But at least we can start with the one that's the lowest in your budget. This is important. I know you've looked at this. Let's just take care of it so you don't have to worry about it and you can get the peace of mind. Does that make sense? And that's where the ask is or the close is. And you'll be surprised. A lot of people are like, yeah, you're right. Again, some people there's just a need in them to question. It's not personal. It's strange. Now, some people, they object and there's a deeper underlying issue and you got to mine away at that, dig away at that to try to have it come out. Sometimes it never comes out and they just won't tell you. Okay. Maybe they got a friend in the business and they don't want to say because they don't want to look stupid or something, right? So common objections you're going to hear. I need to think about it. This is a smoke screen objection, meaning it's like smoke. It's not real. You got to get past the smoke screen to see the real thing. So what you want to say is, okay, when you say, I need to think about it, how do you mean about that? If they don't tell you, then it's like, let me ask you this way. What do you need to specifically think about? What are you caught up about? Is it the amount of coverage? Is it too little? Is the price too much? Then you kind of feed them specific issues, identify and isolate the problem, and then overcome it with the framework we mentioned earlier. I can't afford it. Easiest way to overcome that is early on in your presentation, talk about a budget they can afford. And then you don't have this objection anymore. And then I need to talk to my spouse. My recommendation is, if you can, do a presentation with both spouses. If you can't, close, like I said, anyway. Hey, you need this. Let's just go ahead and start you on the least amount. There's no draft that's going to start until the next 30 days. We're just getting you qualified. That way you can look at this over once you are approved with your spouse. And if it doesn't make sense, just call me. We'll cancel it. I'm super busy. I can't run out here again. You can say stuff like that too, because you're an in-demand professional. And then we'll see what they do. And again, a lot of the times objections are not real. They're a lie. They're a white lie. There's something underlying them, and call them out as aggressively as possible and see if you can overcome them. Very important. Okay. So lesson 90, geez. Okay. Have we done that many? So the end is ask for the sale. So a lot of agents don't actually ask. They get scared. So instead of just asking, do you want to buy this? Just assume. Don't even ask them. Say, here's the prices. Here's the 3 options. My recommendation is start with the least amount or the middle amount. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get your application submitted. We're going to go ahead and see if we can get you approved. So what's your first name? Who do you want your beneficiary as? Oh, by the way, which one of these did you want to start with? So you notice how I went into the application. I assumed I was going to get it. I didn't have to broach the premium. That's a way to do the assumptive close. Okay. The summary close is just basically a summation of everything that they said and then making an offer. And then, does that sound good? Do you want to move forward? The urgency close. This is something that's very usefully used if they're about to have a birthday. And then the question close is very soft. Is there any reason we couldn't get this started today? Okay. Do you see any reason not to move forward? And then once you close, shut up. All right. So a lot of y'all like to talk through awkwardness. When you say, hey, which one of these do you want to start with? Which one do you want to buy? And it's quiet. Just don't talk. Let them think. The gears are grinding in their head. They're thinking about the pros and the cons and what they have to move around and money. Let them lead that, because if you speak too soon, now they're in control and they'll talk themselves out of it. Wait till they tell you this or that or objection. Okay. So closing is not manipulation. It's helping someone make a decision. This is really important too, and especially towards you that have never sold before. Look, people need leadership, okay? This is why we have bosses. This is why we have presidents. This is why we have people in leadership position because making a decision on things is hard. And sometimes the opposite of making a decision is making no decision. But this is one of those things we know that life insurance is something that people procrastinate on. It's nothing they're going to get an immediate benefit out of, and they need encouragement. So it's not that we're manipulating them in a negative sense. We're helping them have clarity, look at options, give confidence to them that this is the right thing. And you have to believe that. It's part of the reason you want to sell a product you actually believe in. It makes this whole asking for the sale thing a lot easier when you yourself would do it too. A pro tip some people say is buy an insurance policy on yourself. And I kind of believe that. It makes you a buyer and a believer because you're doing the same thing too. And you can tell them all the reasons why you did it and get them to believe. So lesson 10 is completing the application. So this is where you get the verbal commitment. Yeah, I'm going to do this policy. At this point, you complete the application. You just basically follow everything that's in there. I like to transition by saying, who do you want your beneficiary to be? I explain how payment works. In final expense, it's buy now, pay later. We don't take money today. We get approved. Sometimes you have to do an underwriting process over the phone. Make sure a couple of things really important here. Don't rush through the application questions. You're at the tail end. Be thorough. Nothing's worse than submitting an application, getting a client all hot and bothered and ready to have peace of mind, and then lo and behold, they forgot about their touch dementia that you failed to ask them, or their COPD, and then it gets declined, and the client hangs up on you, and you're like, oh, I blew it. You did, because you rushed through the health questions. I've done that before, don't worry. Don't always add a contingent backup beneficiary. That's just if the first beneficiary dies before the insurer does. Make sure the date of birth and the Social Security are absolutely accurate. Make sure the client repeats it to make sure. Confirm the method of payment and the date so they know exactly when it's coming out. And make sure you're explaining next steps. Okay, so here's what's going to happen when we submit the application. Okay, you've been approved. Here's what's going to happen when you get your policy. Here's what to expect as far as turnaround. If you have questions, here's who to reach out to. Explain, explain, explain. Eliminate chaos. Create clarity. And there's going to be underwriting basics. So depending on what you're selling, it could be just a cursory look at health, prescription history. More advanced products require looks at lifestyle, financial reviews, etc. So just understand your products, underwriting guidelines. Spend some time, especially as a newer agent, getting to know that really is important. And the last but not least is policy delivery. This is where the policy gets delivered to the client. Some agents prefer to deliver the policy personally, review it with them, and then ask for referrals. I know a handful of agents that do very well at that and get lots of people to continually sell to so they don't have to buy leads. A lot of agents, however, just have the policy delivered and then maybe make a phone or a courtesy phone call after the fact to make sure they got it and answer any questions that they have. So again, good time to ask for referrals at the policy delivery. So the client life cycle looks like this. You submit the app. They do underwriting. The policy gets approved or declined. It's then delivered. There's a 30-day check-in we absolutely recommend. Call them in and say, hey, did you get the policy? Any questions for me? You do an annual review with your clients to add more coverage or to see if there's an opportunity to. And you ask for referrals at every interaction that you have with the client. Annual reviews are important because needs change. People commonly have to buy more insurance. And by being there on an annual basis, it gives a reason why you can visit them. And it increases the amount of commission you make off of every individual client. One client may give you a couple of referrals, buy 2 or 3 more policies, and then it's just really a great source of money. And so that's why doing these kind of follow-up strategies, are the skills to pay the bills. So, and looking at the difference here between rookies and pros, rookies can't stop talking. They give up too soon. They skip the needs analysis. They think this is just get to the price. They don't explain things. They get emotional when they're rejected. They do all the things that I told you not to do. Whereas pro agents listen a lot more. They follow up consistently. They think long-term. A client's more than one transaction. It's multiple ones. They ask for referrals at every delivery. They build a relationship. They sell protection and peace of mind. And they ask really good questions. And they don't take rejection personally because they work and consistently do so and know that there's always opportunity as long as they're consistently doing activity. And just remember, all of us in the beginning, including me, had some form of the rookie disease that you will have as a new agent. The key is to recognize these problems and quickly work to being and transitioning your mindset from rookie agent to pro agent. Okay. And then sales funnel game here again is, you are going to incrementally get better at this game of sales. It's something that doesn't happen instantly. Depending on the product, it can be a 90-day process, 180-day process. Like for final expense, I would say if you're a full-time producer, you know 90% of what you need to know in 90 days. Okay. But you're going to have things where you just run into them and you're like, I don't know what to do. Well, that's why you have a mentor. That's why you have a coach. And that's why you're nice to yourself, because it's a learning process. It's just the way it is. But as you get better, then the output of your sales, referrals, and profit increases exponentially. So understand over time, you will get better, you will do better, and the business will get better because of that. And that's it. So what we're going to do at the end here is talk about the final steps and next steps of the business model. Again, this is just a repeatable sales system of everything we talked about. It is the process we follow. And we're going to talk about really next steps now that we've gone through the entirety of this new agent orientation masterclass. What do? You've received the basic training, and now we're going to talk about your next steps, which is critical into your success as a brand new agent. I want to spend some time congratulating you getting through this far in my training series. The vast majority of people statistically don't make it this far, probably less than 10%. And the truth is that those that don't, many of the times just aren't going to make it. And so when I tell you I'm proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself that you've stuck with it, please take it seriously. This is an indication that you have the capability to deeply focus, that you can be consistent and execute and see things through from beginning to end. And this skill set is critical going into your next steps, because you now have the knowledge base, not just as a licensed insurance agent and being capable now to sell policies, but now you have this transitionary information on where to go, what to do, what to expect, which is really important, because the name of the game in this business is survival to then thrive in the business. And you are now empowered to do so. So congratulations. The next step, again, you've learned how to choose the right agency, building a long-term career, compensation concerns, managing income, the realities of the business, and you've done an incredible job. So what do you do next? So now, really, the next step is to move into choosing an agency. Your job is to figure out where you best fit in the business. So my advice to you is that if you haven't figured out what to do, is continue to do your due diligence. You're probably watching this on YouTube. Go out there and watch YouTube content from myself, other people who produce. Do some due diligence on Facebook groups, Instagram pages, etc. Become a student of the business. Apply what you've learned with the good, the bad, and the ugly of the business as you start to observe these opportunities. My recommendation is to look for 2 or 3 agencies that fit your goals, and then talk to them. Enroll in their opportunity overview. Go ask questions. See if you can develop a further clarity on if the opportunity truly is a good fit for you. And the advice from there is to pick the one that is the best. Okay. Pick the agency that best fits your goals. And take more time than you think, because what happens is 99% of people come in, they join the first agency that invites them. It's a giant catastrophe, and the vast majority of them fail. Some figure it out, pivot, go somewhere else, and hopefully are successful. But commonly, failure comes from a lack of preparation and planning. Okay. So it's not so much that I want you to make a ton of money in your first month. I want you to do away with the common distractions and problems, but really getting to your first goals. Find that right agency. Really dial in, lock into the training and support and mentorship wherever you end up. Get and build momentum and get on the phone or run your appointments. Don't hesitate here. You are at this crucible in your life as a new insurance agent where you're at the peak level of interest and happiness and excitement. This is a state that is not permanent. It's temporary. It's going to wax and wane. And therefore, you should go all in, baby, and make the most of it. Because if you don't, your momentum putters. You lose interest. You see another shiny object in the syndrome or in the system, and you go pursue that, and you get into the cycle of never getting out of it. Okay. So with that, there's a learning cycle. Be nice to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. You're your worst critic, But understand this business takes time to learn, regardless of what product you're selling. So make sure that you're doing the things to accelerate the learning curve. Learn the scripts, study, learn underwriting, practice, role play, rehearse with your fellow agents, ask for feedback, tell them to be brutally honest, not to just, kid punch or kid glove punch you. Okay. Be humble and improve. Fix your problems that you cause. Fix the mistakes in your game and repeat this process over and over. Every single top agent, one of the number one things they tell me is, well, two things. They listen to their own sales calls so they can hear what they did right and what they did wrong for ideas to improve. And number two, they listen to top producers' calls. Like that's what they do when they go to the gym, when they're on the phone or in the car. They're looking and are opportunistic about ways to improve. Remember, this is a big takeaway too. Focus on activities that you can actually control. Remember the serenity prayer. Lord, help me understand the things I can control and I can't control and decipher between the difference is essentially the prayer. Okay. And remember what you can't control whether or not the client's going to buy. You can control the language and the scripting and the decision to follow it. You can control your activity. You can put the time in. You can control your character traits to be more receptive and open to improvement. But you can't control rejection. You can't control if somebody's going to hang up on you. Ultimately, you can't control somebody cancels their policies. Don't get hung up about that stuff. Be hung up all over the place about where your circle of influence is and work that to death. Again, there are safety in numbers, and all sales woes typically come from a lack of prospecting. So think inversely. All sales successes come from an enormous level of going all in, seeing the people, talking to the people, running appointments, and making sales presentations. Alongside that, progress happens gradually. There's very few people I've seen in the business, myself included, that were overnight successes. I failed out of the business 12 months in, came back, never looked back after that. It took me 2 times before I started getting traction in a serious way. But understand, the more that you stick with this business, man, the opportunities are incredible. Okay. And last but not least, remember, this is a relationship business. One piece of advice that I wish I had taken earlier is that your clients are people, they're humans, number one. Number two, they're more than just one singular sale. If I had done things differently back in the day, I would have gone all in faster on final expense. I would have been more humble learning. It would have been more active selling. And I would have put my brain on the back burner because I made some dumb decisions marketing that caused me to fail in part. And if I didn't go the agency building direction, which is the decision I made in 2013, I would have built that relationship with my clients more purposefully so I could go back to all of them and sell them Medicare. And then a couple of years later, would have had a 500 to 700 list Medicare client list. I would have made 6 figures in residual income on top of the 6 figures in income on personal production, and been making a lot of money as a 30-year-old man. So that would have been because of the relationship. Okay. So focus on relationship. Don't just think this is just a one-time sale. This is a business that you're building. And it's a business that's going to build you a lifestyle that so many other business opportunities and industries just can't meet. And it's not going to be easy. It's definitely going to be hard, but it's absolutely worth it. So I hope you enjoyed today's training and our new agent orientation masterclass. I really hope for the best in your career. Again, please stick with this. I can't stress enough how much this has had an impact on my life personally, on my children, on my wife. This business is amazing. It's absolutely worth every ounce of sweat, frustration that the first couple of years are going to give you. But eventually you get it, you work harder, you see more fruit, and you're glad you stayed. My name is David Duford. If you're looking for an agency to call home, consider my company, The Dig Agency. Remember, we offer free leads, the ability to work from home remotely or in person in your local community. We have amazing training, mentorship, support. Our job is to help build new agents, aspiring agents, whether they're part-time or full-time, into top producers. So you can go to my website, davidduford.com, to find out more. And then below, there's a link in the description box you can click on too. Thanks so much.